But the main thing, what have we done with these last 50 years? What have we seen? We've seen 2 generations parade before us. What have they learned? What have they committed to? We started out in the active years, the Italian-Ethiopian War. We thought Africa would be liberated by now. We've seen it go to the door of liberation and literally turn around or be turned around. We've seen the 2 branches of the African world, Afro-American, Caribbean, and Africa, get to the brink of liberation and let itself be turned around. Literally, we've seen Garvey betrayed.
Yes.
We've seen him betrayed by his own people. We've seen his dream turned around. And tragically, in his own country, of people who will elect a Seaga, produce a Marcus Garvey, and elect a Seaga, a white man from Boston, have problems. Call him a Lebanese if you want to. This is a jive artist and a con man who came to Jamaica to be elected. Learn Jamaican folklore, learn Jamaican dialogue, studied Jamaicanese, studied the politics of Jamaica, studied the folklore and the ways of the Jamaican people, jived his way into the politics, and got elected. No black people, the folk ways, the color ways, their color preferences, and rolled in on their prejudices. Knew that Jamaica was one of the most color stratified islands in the Caribbean. England had made it so. All of this has to do with something. If Marcus Garvey were alive today and ran for election in Jamaica, he would lose. If Marcus Garvey were alive today and ran for election in Bedford-Stuyvesant, he would win. Tell you something about the temperament of the Caribbean mentality at home and the Caribbean mentality away from home. A few years ago, Caribbean scholar Keith Henry wrote an article for me when I was editor of Freedom Ways called Tigers Abroad and Meek Moses at Home. I wouldn't publish it. I said it's a good article and it's absolutely honest. But if I publish it, somebody will have my head. Because it's honest, it's true. So why don't you publish it? See, it reveals something that none of us are ready to face. And this summer, last summer, in Barbados, on an intellectual tour, I delivered a lecture called The Caribbean Mind Away from Home, dealing with the fact that the finest minds that the Caribbeans ever produced never could function in the Caribbean. Marcus Garvey, and that the best minds who attempted to function in the Caribbean were killed in the Caribbean. The last example was the great Walter Rodney. killed in the Caribbean. And their finest minds function outside of the Caribbean, and that Black America became the beneficiary of some of these finest minds, starting with Prince Hall, who built the Black Masons. And there, in Barbados, one evening, before I made the speech, I was speaking to an aristocratic woman, and I said that tomorrow I will speak on the Caribbean mind away from home, and I will start with Prince Hall, and I will end with George Lamon. And she jumped as though I had said something about her mother that was unpleasant. She said, "You dare mention the name of George Lamon on this island?" I said, "He's only the finest literary figure Barbados has ever produced." She said, "That's horrible, man. He dared to say that tourism is horrorism." I said, "What else is it?" I said, "George Lamon is such a great writer. I was reading one of his novels, and he was describing rain. And he was describing it so graphically. When I finished reading the novel and started outside, I went upstairs and looked for a raincoat and quite forgot that the sun was shining. He made me feel that it was raining outside. That was greatness in writing. And she said, "Why not V.S. Naipaul? He handles the English language so well." V.S. Naipaul is an East Indian who hates East Indians, West Indians, English, hates Indians, hates his own people, everybody else's people. Don't love nothing and nobody. But he handles the English language quite well. There is no humanity in anything he ever wrote. All right, now, let's start the lecture.
Politician, GLP, PNP, me go say it again, I mean not stop saying it. The Jamaica Labour Party and the People's National Party is the worst thing happened to Jamaica. The Jamaica Labour Party and the People's National Party is the worst thing happened to Jamaica.
Lots happening in Jamaica this morning. Lots of movements on the roads. As early as it is, they're moving out already. And our understanding is that for many of the town centers across Jamaica, the buses are being loaded and the anticipation is pretty high as partisan Jamaicans head to halfway tree, because somehow this morning or later on this evening, sometime after 6 o'clock, the country is expecting the election date. Lots happening. The police has issued guidelines for the rally. That's a PNP rally. And we're doing this pretty early up, but we'll be saying it a few times this morning because we know you're heading into Kingston. So many persons are heading into Kingston. We're witnessing that. Bearing in mind that the police have posted guidelines for the staging of the much anticipated PNP rally, the mass rally in Halfway Tree today. It is expected that the date for the pending general elections will be announced So that the police are advising delegates and supporters who are attending the rally that no firearms, no knives, no drugs, no ice picks, no machetes, no umbrellas, no walking stick type umbrellas, no glass bottles of any or other items that can be used to cause serious harm or injury will be allowed at the venue. Also, traffic changes taking effect in the area at 7 a.m. this morning. So just in case you're thinking of being anywhere in the halfway tree area, it is now 13 after 6 o'clock and the changes are going to go into effect at 7. So from 7 a.m. this morning, Sunday, January 31 until midnight on Monday, we understand, Monday, February 1. So if you're entering halfway tree, the police are also advising that the delegates and persons entering the rally will be subject to search. We'll give you the areas where there are traffic changes because that I know will be of importance to many of you who expect to be on the road today and not necessarily heading to halfway tree. So we understand that Constant Spring Road to the intersection, well, motorists are being advised to use alternate routes, okay, where necessary. So Constant Spring Road to the intersection at South Avenue, Hope Road to the intersection at Winchester Avenue, South Odeon Avenue to the intersection of Eastwood Park Road, Derrimore Road to the intersection of Eastwood Park Road, Constant Spring Road to the intersection at Derrimore Road, and Constant Spring Road to the intersection at North Odeon Avenue. The police said the following: those roads that we've just read will be closed to vehicular traffic. Constant Spring Road to the intersection at South Avenue, Hope Road to the intersection at Winchester Avenue, South Odeon Avenue to the intersection at Eastwood Park Road, Derrimore Road to the intersection at Eastwood Park Road, Constant Spring Road to the intersection at Derrimore Road, Constant Spring Road to the intersection at North Odeon Avenue. These roads will be closed as at 7 o'clock. All right. Uniformed police personnel will be posted along the routes, we understand, to give direction and oversee the areas, and motorists will be required to obey all their instructions. No parking will be allowed in the following along the following roads: Southermere Avenue, South Odeon Avenue, Winchester Avenue, Ruthven Road, and Hope Road. Information that we will be repeating throughout the morning. But remember that this comes into effect in just about 45 minutes, according to the police. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to ensure that you had it very earlier up, just in case you're heading in those directions. We do have a lot to talk about this morning, also against the background of the impending and the pending general elections, which are expected to be announced today. Against that background, just about the time that they'll be closing off those roads, we will be talking to Pan-African Attorney at Law, Bert Samuels, and we're doing a follow-up and an update to some of the issues that Jamaican people, especially African Jamaicans, but Jamaicans in general, should be concerned about, issues specifically relating to the monarchy, the British monarchy, and the Jamaica's head of state. And you will recall that a few weeks ago we spoke to our brother Bert Samuels about the Queen of England as the visitor of the University of the West Indies. One of the things that we said then and discussed seriously, and we still believe, is that in our time, it is our responsibility to ensure that we address these issues, demarcating the various segments of our history before Mansa Kankan Musa, before Khufu, or just around that time, that in this time, before the interruption that was slavery of our history, that process is not complete. The liberation process is not complete. So that slavery is that interruption, enslavement, to put simply, no freedom, and that so many of our ancestors in various times recognized their roles and responsibilities in the liberation process and did their purpose. What is our purpose in this time? And we feel that part of our purpose in this time is to free ourselves from the chains and the shackles of neocolonialism. Part of that being getting rid of the colonial institutions that still remain. The legacies of colonialism. The relics of colonialism. That includes the British monarchy, and that includes the idea, the very idea that those who enslave us remain as head of state and are so deeply woven in the fabric of all of our institutions, in our laws and policies, that this then becomes an issue for any general election. So, against the background of the big event at Halfway Tree today, we look at some of the issues that concerns us and those that should be concerning us. So, Pan-African Attorney at Law, Bert Samuels, joins me on the phone lines at around 7 o'clock. That's around the time when the police will be closing off those roads in and around the mass rally, which is scheduled for Halfway Tree this evening. The roads are going to be closed from 7 a.m. and that's interesting, isn't it? So you can expect to face these other challenges as you go about your business today. If you don't have to go anywhere, I suggest you stay home. All right, so also this morning, joining me in the studio, Attorney at Law Linton Gordon, and we're going to be talking about the expectations for today. Of course, looking through Pan-African lenses, as we always do. Veteran journalist Devon Evans will also be joining me in the studio. Journalist, Pan-African, founder of the founding member of the Marcus Garvey People's Progressive Party. He himself contested the by-elections in 2010 and the general elections in 2011. But he joins me with that knowledge and that experience, and as a journalist who over many years has been covering political issues in Jamaica. Himself a Pan-African politician. And later on the phone lines, we'll be hearing from Ras Asta Black, founder and chairman of the board Ras Asta Black Interactive Music and Arts Institute, and founder of the Jamaica Alliance Movement. Ras Asta Black is contesting the South St. James seat with Minister Derek Kelly. Another independent candidate for the upcoming general elections is Haile Mikhail. Haile Mikhail, a social worker and an educator. He announced his candidacy on September 4, 2015 with a speech in Darlington Square in Westmoreland. He'll be seeking to represent Westmoreland West in the upcoming general elections. And then later on in the program, the Marcus Garvey Fair 2016 is coming up shortly. And Lady President of Division 454, UNIA Jamaica, also an educator with over 40 years experience teaching at the tertiary level. Someone herself who's been watching the political scene in Jamaica for a very, very long time. Valerie Dixon will be joining me on the phone lines. All right, thank you for joining on the social media. Thank you so much for joining on the internet at irafm.net. I am on Twitter at Kabu Maat Keru. That's KABUMAAT KHERU. Kabu Maat Keru. I'm on Facebook as Kabu Maat Keru. You can also find me on Facebook at the Running African, the IRFM Forum, and also on Twitter at China in Jamaica. We're also on Facebook at China in Jamaica. You know, we've been looking at the issue of China and China's expeditionary capabilities, especially military expeditionary capabilities. We had the first bottom line on that. And so that our discussions in terms of the bottom line last week scheduled to do the second this week. We'll see if we have, within the context of the conversations we're going to be having all morning, if we can get to that. If not, we push back. But China is also one of the issues to be looked at, even as we talk about the mass rally in Halfway Tree Square later on today. Tonight, we understand that the agony and the anxiety of millions of Jamaicans at home and in the diaspora will be ended, or should be ended, because nobody knows, do we or do we? Do we or don't we? All right. The Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller is expected to announce a date for the island's 17th general elections since voting began in 1944. Prime Minister Simpson Miller is expected to deliver the main address when the PNP cranks up its election machinery in Halfway Tree Square. So somewhere around 9 o'clock or thereabouts, we understand that the announcement is expected to be made. And listen, this is not the PNP saying this. Just journalists generally speculating, but speculating from a position of knowledge, all right? Because we've done this forever. Okay. So I'm sure that you've all been checking off the dates on your fingers, saying that, all right, so if it's announced today, then you have so many days until nomination, you have so many days until so-and-so, and persons have come up with various dates as a result of that. For ourselves here, we're thinking it's somewhere towards the end of February, but others are looking at March. Some are projecting February 29. Well, we're saying anywhere in that week, ending that week actually, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. Oh goodness, in that case, and why am I saying this? Because in that case, we're going to be looking at our Black History Month programming and our Black History Month activities, because I'm quite sure that if a date is in February or even early, very, very early March, that some of those activities will be negatively impacted. So stay tuned and we'll tell you exactly what is what once we hear what date this thing will be. All right, you're inside of the Africa Forum. It is Running African, and since this is what most people are talking about this morning, we're looking at it also through the Pan-African lens. as I said before, we'll do that beginning at 7 o'clock and going through the rest of the morning. We also have quite a few announcements to make. Remember, we told you that Valva Dixon will be joining me on the phone lines, and that's because the Marcus Garvey Fair 2016 will be happening on Sunday, February 28 at the Cross Keys High School, and we'll tell you more about that. Dr. Clinton Hutton also has his book launch coming up. We'll tell you more about that also. And also the plans for the 50th anniversary of the visit of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie to Jamaica. Some of those plans are in high gear, especially a particular plan for the motorcade. And we'll tell you more about that later on this morning also. Some of our Black History Month events, as you know, on February 12, we're heading to James Avenue, James Avenue, Music Avenue. And if you're an notorious, you know, once you say Music Avenue, you're talking about Jack Ruby. And we are honoring and celebrating and remembering Jack Ruby in this reggae month. Black History Month celebrations include, and that will be on February 12, by the way, at James Avenue. IRFM will be rolling out the entire machinery as we park ourselves in James Avenue for a celebration of a contribution of Jack Ruby to Jamaica's musical heritage, the music industry, and development generally. Jack Ruby, of course, the name behind persons such as Burning Spear Foundation, Donovan, and so many others. Then, and this is pending, this I'm sure will happen because it is February 12. Hopefully we'll have no big political event to change the course of that. But also, on February 18, the Culture Yard in the courtyard of IRFM, as we look at the cultural continuities from reggae, from Kumina to reggae, in the courtyard of all day at IRFM. We'll be broadcasting that live also. And then on the weekend of February 26th, 27th, and 28th, and you see right there we are getting, according to calculations, we're right in the week of when the election would be, if we're projecting correctly, when the election would be called. And that's a weekend of the Peter Tosh Festival, IRFM's Peter Tosh Festival. Well, let us see. We'll keep you informed on what's happening, how it's happening, and whether or not it is the extent to which we have to scale back or not. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we have much more inside of the Africa Forum, Running African.
The essence of power is the ability to define someone's reality and have them live according to that definition as though it is a definition of their own choosing.
It is Running African. All right, let's go to the phone lines, Hotep.
Hotep, Uncle Jasineb.
Uncle Jasineb, my brother. How you doing?
Good.
Yes.
Good. You know one thing, Mr. Cabo, people who put themselves up as independent, I don't think they have informed themselves sufficiently on economic matters.
They themselves, or because we have a situation where independents or seem to be, to me, I could be wrong, we can ask them later on, do not necessarily take counsel with others of like mind.
I would agree with that as well. Because you see, in the era that we are right now, it's all about the economy. You remember the term, it's the economy stupid?
I do remember it, and I noticed that Mr. Franklin Johnston has written about that. So it's not Porsche, it's the economy stupid. In one of our newspapers last week, interestingly, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for updating me on that. Because you see, all right, when you look at the rapprochement with both Cuba and Iran, if you look at them closely, you see that it's all about the economy. Right?
All right, but you say that about people who have put themselves up as independent, but how is it different with the two major political parties? Because taking the economy into perspective.
Well, let's say the two-head monster now have informed the two heads to some extent about economic matters. And if you notice, twiddly-dee, twiddly-dum is not much difference between them in this time. Not much difference.
And you know, and
approach to economic
yes, and there's another travesty that is happening. And I don't know if you saw the prayer breakfast, if you heard the speech from the Reverend. I think was it Reverend Samuel's his name? I'm not quite sure.
Yeah.
I turned off just as he began, because he as a minister, I was pretty shocked to hear the way he started about how good things are. And I'm thinking that if you are head of a flock and this is what you're coming to say, is it because of where you are and you're looking at, you know, all politicians and all private sector, and so you feel the need to lie? But I was in my living room watching that, and I thought, as a citizen, it didn't ring true with me. It was all a bunch of lie. I could not relate, and so I turned off. I turned away from him totally in disgust. So we have a third head to the monster, which is the church. And generally speaking, the church is split down the middle, siding with either the JLP or the PNP without apology. Partisan politics without apology in the church. You ask anybody who is going to a church this morning and who have got church from within the over this period, what the pastors have been preaching from the stage, from a stage. All the world is a stage, and we're actors upon it, and it turned out that the pastors are too. So that our situation is tripled in terms of the challenges that we're facing for those of us who want to see liberation, who wants to see the process of emancipation completed, who want to see the process of independence complete. So we have a lot of. But what do you think are some of the main issues, Garnet, even as we look to this new election date that is scheduled to be announced today?
Well, you see, on the ground, one cannot say the economy is all hunky-dory. The micro economy is not good, right? But as it relates to the macro economy, where people, and you see, the thing is, the economy too is what we make it, you know.
What the IMF make it. We can't make it, not if the IMF is so involved. And I know that we disagree on the role that the IMF is playing in Jamaica. But we are not going to make anything of no macro economy as long as the IMF is dictating. That power has been taken away from us.
Yeah, but even as you mentioned, established earlier,
You see, we within the context. I may understand what you said, but you see, we within the context, have to forge our way forward by doing our things to go. All right, look on Rebel Salute. It go on good, and we have to find.
It go on good in what? In terms of what?
Organization wise.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it really was a pretty good show. It was properly organized. But what are you saying about that in relation to the economy?
That we have to find ways to organize with things.
But we should have a discussion with Tony Rebel about how difficult it has been for him over the years to even garner sponsorship, and how when the extent to which the private sector and others have been willing to sponsor, for want of a better word, shows like Rebel Salute. Rebel Salute is one, and I think Tony is probably, and I think he's still fighting with it. I don't think that it's all a bed of rose for him. It's a difficult, it's a big show, it's a massive show. It takes a lot to put on, and I'm looking at it at the production. I don't know. We need to ask him what the profit line is. Kind of, it might look like it's all that, but it's a lot had to have gone into that for us to experience what we experience at Rebel Salute.
The organization of it being something that I approve of. It is an opportunity now that we have something where we can put our money behind.
Yeah, and it's a chicken and the egg. It's a chicken and the egg, because when you talk about our money, which our money? People are getting poorer and poorer. Yeah, but people are getting poorer and poorer as the dollar continues to devalue, and the private sector says it's okay with them because they are seeing they are reaping the rewards of the devaluation of the dollar. Who you think feeling it? We the little one who talking about we can put our money here and there.
All the more reason why we have to put we little penny together,
We have to do more than that. There has to be a radical change to the structure,
absolutely,
to the system. Thank you, Garnet.
Yeah, give
man. Looking for my Uncle Ernest song, and it looked like I left it same place where I take it out, as we fight one another for the power and the glory. We need to find that song. We've got to be the change that we want to see, and we have to ensure that we're actively participating in that change that we want to see. It has to be more than veranda talk. It has to be more than discussions on the radio stations. It has to be much more than that. It is action time now. Nothing has changed for us. We shouldn't say that. A lot has changed for us. The promise of independence has not been fulfilled. The promise of emancipation has not been fulfilled. Jamaican people are getting poorer and poorer. The middle class has been decimated. And I know I said class in a space where we don't talk about class, but for easy understanding, there's a whole segment of a Jamaican society, the hard-working teachers and doctors and public servants who are totally being decimated in terms of their ability to earn and to make a living for themselves and their families. As we take another call, Hotep?
Hotep Cabo?
Yeah, Hotep, my brother, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
I am well, thanks.
Yeah, today's a big day.
It would appear so,
So you think so, they might call it?
I think so. I don't. It would be an idiot to make such a big noise and then just don't call it.
so what about when Dr. Peter Phillips did, when he come from the trip abroad and then he come and talk about November? Big.
But Peter Phillips is not the Prime Minister?
Yeah, but it must be a very important role in the government.
Regardless. Maybe that is the reason. Maybe it's a power play on both sides.
Yeah. But listen to me now. That girl at the University of the West Indies who has this problem with the visitor.
Yes.
So that situation has not been dealt with as yet, and it's gone now about 3 weeks in our study.
When you say a situation hasn't been dealt with, she has not, she hasn't been able to move further at all, you're saying?
Yes. Because remember
yeah, I need to give her a call, I need to hear from her. Yes. Yes. I need to hear from you, Suzette. Give me a call. Let us know what's happening, because we're going to be talking to Bert Samuels again this morning, not about that case specifically, but out of that case. What are the challenges that we're facing as a country, even as we talk about an election date? But thank you for informing me of that. But Bert literally said it when he was here the last time, that this is the second time it's happening that we know of. And from what we garnered talking to Bert. And one of the things he said was that so they didn't go. From the minute they heard that this has to go to the Queen of England, that there was no further to go in that direction. You'd have to look at alternate ways. But once the court ruled, what you do?
Yeah. You have to follow their direction.
Isn't it? So really, it's a way of. Isn't it? So really, it's a way of stopping the oppressed from seeking justice.
Sure.
Yeah.
This is a big thing, man. Because, I work for money from the university,
Look here, and I notice that there's another nastiness and I mean that word deliberately, that's happening with young people who are trying to get into university. And I know of a particular case of a young man who just graduated high school, who's been frustrated 15 ways to hell in getting into university. This is somebody who has made a decision, passed all I'm subjecting, and then some, and trying to make his way into university, but he's been frustrated by the system between student loan and the mistakes that are being made at registration at UTech and all kinds of something. He still hasn't been properly, what I'm calling it, not registered, I think, yes.
So you mean from since September?
Yes, back and forth. No. Enrolled is a word.
Yes. This is serious.
It's very serious.
So what you're saying, that he hasn't got the, maybe
he got the loan, and small things, can cause UTech or whatever university. I don't know about UA, because this specific case is to UTech. Very small things can cause you not to be enrolled. So student loans, so them release the money, and UTech, so them a seat come up on them thing, and then them seat come up on them thing, but them not have distance. And so that young man has been sent back and forth, send the fool a little further, but he's not for a fool. He's a very, very intelligent young man who has been doing this against all odds and still not enrolled as we speak. This is where this for me is a travesty when we are trying to catch our young boys especially, and to say to them education is one of the best routes to go.
Yeah, and look here, did you know that if you don't have a degree you can't get even a job in the bank?
Well, I can understand that, because you have a flux, an influx, you have a flood on the market. So if you don't, and right now you're talking about a degree, I know, because I'm in a position that I deal with that the competition now is really higher than that at the first degree, sometimes people don't even look too much at the first degree anymore, because there's so many first and second degrees out there, that when they come to your desk, you're not even saying that this person is too qualified anymore, because it is what it is, So it's a master's. Most people are looking at master's degrees. This is I've been having some conversations with myself about it. Right. That there was once upon a time when the A levels could get your foot into the work experience, but you're competing with the masters, because people are graduating from university and are waiting 5 years before they can pick up a job, and that is why we have the brain drain on the system.
Yeah,
and that is why the response to maths and the maths and science teachers and the recommendations on the board don't make much sense, one of the main recommendations, which is to pay them more. It is not about paying them more, I refuse to believe that. I think that incentives are good, but incentives across the board. But what about the idea of scholarship and bonding and so on? You know, that to me makes more sense, because if you're talking about a brain drain and you're talking about the extent to which persons are finding so difficult, you said universities are expensive, then give people scholarships. Bond them over for 5 years, and then by that time the next cohort would have been ready for the next bonding, and you set that in motion. But you can imagine the inequity in schools when you start paying science and maths teacher different from the other teachers who have gone through the very same process.
Yeah, because they're going to say every subject is important.
Look, man, we know about inequity, man. We know about inequality. Because me and you train at the same place and at the same time, the same amount of training. But just because you do maths and science and me do history and geo, you know, you are get more paid than me.
Yeah, that cannot be.
Then go take the class.
Yeah.
And you can't call me if you do nothing extra. You go take the class. Get send the maths teacher. You know how much money I carry home. I don't go to school. You know? That's what's going to happen in the schools.
Yes.
We laugh, but it's serious. But thank you so much, my brother. And if you seem to know Suzette, so tell her we're giving a shout out. You know, we'd like to hear from her.
Oh, hold on. Funny enough, you know, I don't know her, you know.
Oh, really?
No.
Okay, all right. We can find her.
Yes, find her.
Yeah, man. All right, give that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We refuse to be what you wanted us to be.
So we understand that the modern day slave convoys are rolling out to halfway tree, and Jamaican people, you know, ignorance is an interesting thing, and I'm not saying that everybody who gone to halfway tree ignorant, but you know, the masses of Jamaican people have been kept in ignorance for such a day as this. As we go back to the phone lines, Hotep.
Hotep.
Greetings, my brother. Go ahead.
I think one of the major changes that we ought to be demanding from our politicians is a constitutional change that takes away the power from the governing party, which always abuse it, because absolute power corrupts. And
well, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts, absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
And one of them is this room for rent apply within. When one run out, the other one run in. Sit in the same chair, continue on where the others stop, and where progress is concerned, them change it or stop it, because they don't want to be told that them are continue what the other one started.
Yeah, that has been the bane of Jamaica's existence for a very, very long time. And every time, you know, I have this conversation about this particular thing, I think about Port Maria and Paget Beach and the development that was scheduled to happen there in the 80s under Michael Manley. I was a student then and interested in journalism and covered that. That was supposed to be something. But if you go there today, the shell of those buildings, because a lot of work had been done on those, the shell of those buildings remain, and scores of persons who could have been entrepreneurs were denied that opportunity because of a change in government.
And one building downtown there which has been a victim of the same thing what them continue doing. It started and it stopped. And one other one is when signing major contracts on behalf of the people of Jamaica, one side should not sign it, that give the other one the opportunity to say, well, boy, they wasn't a part of it and it wasn't a good deal. And
then keeping it secret from the people of Jamaica on whose behalf you have signed it on.
So the people's representative must be sitting around that table to sign on to that piece of paper to say, well, yes, I was a part of that deal. And
well, this is the idea about the representative democracy, you know. It's just that there's a misunderstanding of what it should be among those who are selected to and elected to represent. They see that they represent themselves. Each and every one of them individually represent themselves, and when they are ready, they collectively come together to represent themselves collectively. So that we're always outside of that process. So democracy is a farce as far as what we see happening here is concerned. But I do have to go. Thank you very much for sharing. Yeah.
The essence of power is the ability to define someone's reality and have them live according to that definition as though it is a definition of their own choosing.
right, we're back with you inside of the Africa Forum. It is Running African, and Glenn Garwood on Facebook says, "Hotep, my sister, just a note on the traffic changes. They will allow those going to church to go through." Okay, so that's what we're hearing now. Thank you, Glenn, for that. Don't have that in the document that I have here, but might be a late edition. We're going to go to the phone lines now to speak with a Pan-African attorney, Bert Samuels. Big rally happening in Kingston in Halfway Tree today. Persons are expecting the announcement of the pending general election, the date. It will be the island's 17th general election since 1944. And we're talking to our brother Bert Samuels about some of the issues facing the island from election to election. So this is an issue that is a national issue. Good morning, my brother Bert Samuels, Pan-African attorney at law.
Good morning to you.
Morning. Thank you. And we know you're an early riser, so when we're scheduling you, we say, look here, Bert is an early riser. He'll do 7.
Okay, you're right.
Yeah. All right. So, but most of Jamaica is up already because, Bert, I don't know if you've been out yet jogging or anything, but for those of us who have been on the road, and especially those of us who are outside of Kingston, what we're seeing tells a tale of people boarding buses like crazy and heading in your direction.
Are they coming to look for me?
I think I don't think they're coming to look for you, but from the but we can just infer from the color of their clothes, they're heading for Halfway Tree.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I can say that. All right, so Bert, against that background of all that is unfolding today and what persons expect, we can ask you your personal opinion of whether or not you think the election is going to be called today. The date is going to be announced.
It's going to be. That's my bet. It's going to be.
It's going to be announced.
Yeah, it's going to be announced.
Yes, we think so. Against that background, though, and as we go from election to election, and for somebody like yourself who has been talking through elections, literally, about some of the major issues facing Jamaica from a Pan-African perspective, but from national perspectives, such as who is the head of state of Jamaica? Why do we need to address this one thing? And we had a conversation a few weeks ago, you and me, you were actually here in the studio, when something else hit over our heads, this whole idea of the Queen of England being the visitor to the University of the West Indies. How important is it, regardless of what happens after the date is announced and the election call and who win, for the next administration to put this front and center on their agenda?
Well, my bet is it won't be addressed. In the next 5 years. It's not going to be addressed because it's not part of the manifesto. It's not part of either of the two parties' plans to remove the Queen of England as the head of state, head of the judiciary through the Privy Council, and head of the parliament. It's not going to change. And so who's going to do it? I mean, when we spoke, Abu, there were callers who were saying, how can the change come about? And I said, unless the electorate put the foot down and say, this has to change, it's not going to change. Bad news for you.
Well, yes, and you know what's interesting, Bert, is that after that program, and I don't know if you felt it, but we got a flood of responses, I mean, from all over the world, from persons who have said to us, and here in Jamaica it was overwhelming, that they heard you say that, and they felt that, yes, this is the way to go. But what my feeling and the sense I'm getting from listening to most persons talk about wanting to do something is that people are expecting leadership. Somebody to say, let us do this.
The first hint that anyone who in political office had a difficulty with it was when Mr. Manley said, taking the oath of office, when he was to take it and state that he will serve the Queen. He said he didn't mean it when he said it, and he got in a lot of problems for that. Because it's part of an oath. So eventually that oath was removed from the Prime Minister's oath and the members of Parliament that they will serve Her Majesty's government. But that oath is the reality. Although the oath has been changed, it is really the Queen's government in Jamaica, the Queen of England's government. So it's going to be like that. And then when this program came about, there were professors and people with their doctorates out of UWI who didn't know that the Queen of England is in charge of the University of the West Indies.
Yes.
It's her university.
So ignorance is also part of, or plays a great part in our continued oppression. But it seems to me that we really shouldn't be ignorant on such an issue such as these. So we ourselves, as activists, as academics, as professionals, civil society, and just persons, liberators and lovers of freedom. What's our responsibility in terms of what we know? Don't we have some responsibility to inform ourselves?
Yeah, because Kabu, and sometimes I'm wondering, is this 2016? Do we still have a constitution in 2016 that gives that status to the Queen of England to be the head of all of the institutions of government? And therefore, with that knowledge, how do we go forward? I mean, there's no one brave enough to come forward and defend the position. It can't be defended in terms of how we look at ourselves. Mm-hmm. So why do we still have it in the Constitution? It means that we have never part company from slavery through to colonialism. We have not parted company with this oppressive royal family. She does not belong to us. And you know what? That is why, when I was in 1966, when His Imperial Majesty Emperor Selassie came to Jamaica, it was for the first time that people saw that there was now an African king. And that is part of why it was the greatest welcome ever given by the people. Mm-hmm. Now, that's the grassroots people finding a king for themselves. Mm-hmm. To me, when they hailed the emperor, it was a rejection of the Queen of England. Mm-hmm. That they, a Rasta man, when that queen came here once, was on the boulevard, and he passed on his bicycle and said to the crowd who were out there waiting to wave to this woman, says, "My queen, they're my yard." He's not stopping there. "My queen, they're my yard." So yes, that indigenous feeling that we should reject her is among the people, but not among officialdom in Jamaica. That is why it's not changed.
And since we've been having this conversation, you mentioned the Constitution at least 3 times, and then the question is, this requires constitutional change. Now, yes. How do we heard, from Bruce Golding around the time that he went to the NDM. Remember in those days that the biggest thing on his agenda to be done was to address that. Constitutional change was what he pushed. We didn't hear much about that from him after a while. But we have had various people say that from time to time. But we haven't seen anything done. What can you tell us about the Constitution, how long it's in effect, and when it changed, and what the reform, when did we last have a reform? I don't know if them questions make sense.
Well, we changed the Charter of Rights, the rights of each citizen there, and that was an opportunity to at the same time change the way we look at ourselves, but that was never done. That's 2011 was the last big change in the Constitution, but that was for the rights clause. Mm-hmm. But she still, her footprints are still all over the Constitution, and therefore, is there a commitment to formally remove her, so that she no longer can come here and refer to the government of Jamaica as, quote, "my government in Jamaica"? I heard her say that on a visit here.
But that's how they talk. And I know, Bert, that you have been in their houses of Parliament and etc. etc. As a journalist studying in England, part of what I did was to cover the British Parliament, and yes. My eyes opened wide. It's like somebody lift a veil off of my eyes, and my understanding became a whole different thing. You see, when you're sitting in that place, and you hear how these people talk about the Commonwealth. And when you hear how they talk about India and Hong Kong and Jamaica and the Caribbean. When you hear
her territories, they are her territories.
Yes, these are her territories, and they see them just as if I'm sitting in my house and saying, well, all right, so my child must have this to go to school. No, she not gonna get this year. We'll get that next year. And this is the same way they deal with us in that place. So they do see us as Her Majesty's territory. And understanding that, and understanding the decisions that they make in their parliaments about us. In other words, they are doing something about us without us.
Yes, and that's why Cameron said we should move on. He was unable to say that Britain wasn't built by our labor, slave labor. But he says now, after 300 years, we should just move on because, we were, and he said, we led the Europe in liberating and ending slavery, as if it wasn't our cutlasses and we bonfire and invade the great house, that they couldn't tolerate us anymore as slaves, which we won for ourselves. So they want us to feel that they gave us, and the books, the history books, made us feel that, they gave us freedom. And you see, there are a lot of people who went as far as petitioning the Queen when things were bad in Jamaica. So there's this mentality in Jamaica that the Queen is our savior. That is why we open the courts every morning in Jamaica, tomorrow morning, with God Save the Queen, because she's supposed to be our savior. That is what you call mental bleaching. That's what I call it. So that's why people want to bring their skins to look like hers. Mm-hmm. It's not accidental.
Mental bleaching.
They want to look like the savior.
Yes, it's a phrase that we're going to ensure that it's injected properly in the narrative. Mental bleaching, and we need you to develop some more on it. But Bert, can you also talk to us about this? Because at one stage a few years ago, Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller did address this. She said she said Jamaica already had a queen or something to that effect, and she also talked about, she gave the impression that this is something that she would be paying some attention to. What happened, do you know?
It never came about.
Sorry, Bert, before you go on, what did she say? Do you recall? Because I didn't quote.
I think that she said she's going to replace the head of Jamaica with the president. And the structure would have been changed, that it becomes someone here, and it would not go as far as she being the head of government. That's what was said. But no, it hasn't happened. And it's not part of the manifesto of the parties. I don't see that being part of it. And it's not been published as yet. So the people need to put it on the front burner.
So you're saying the manifesto hasn't been published, so it is not too late for the people to... But you sound like you're a jag while you talk to me.
No, I'm going to stop it now. You caught me.
Yes. Well, because I'm sorry to interrupt your early morning jog. I'll soon let you
I'm
go.
good. I mean, I'm sure the people want to hear this. It's too hidden a fact,
Yes, but somebody like you really do have to keep fit. Because the work that you're doing for the race is phenomenal, on the ground here in Jamaica and otherwise. All right.
Thank you.
So why? So then nothing was done. She made this announcement and nothing was done. If you were to speculate, what challenges would she have had, or did she just drop it?
Well, sometimes we have to be careful, because we have the view that there's an agenda, that the question of aid and assistance, if you become too radical, the British will, in a subtle way, withdraw some of these programs. If you become anti-monarchy, I mean, if they could, they would like to shut people like yourself and I up. Mm-hmm. We feel that there is a difficulty in putting forward the case, because even the reparation movement, persons have warned us that we could get a backfire from the British, who would just cut aid to us if we push this thing too much, because it's going to be too much a dent on their economy if they had to give reparation.
But let me
it's the same thing. Yeah?
Let me ask you a question on that, because it seems to me if there is going to be change, we fool ourselves if we think that those in power are going to let go without a serious fight, and part of that means cutting aid. So we must be prepared for that.
Well, Fidel could teach us how to survive on that kind of pressure. The Cuban Revolution did not bow. Eventually they had to negotiate with them to get back relationships with the U.S. government, and that's a starting example in the Caribbean. We need to be able to stand up and not be threatened for, a bag of rice, as the Garvey philosophy is, and sell ourselves out. And this is a self-esteem issue. You can imagine the Jews making Hitler, continue to have Hitler as their head of state. What's the difference?
No difference. No difference. And so that as we're having this conversation, is an ongoing thing that we're going to be doing here until we figure out how to do it, because obviously we know the what and we know why, but it is a how that seems to have us paralyzed. Why the paralysis? And my very good friend Professor who does my libation here in the morning, Jeffries, talk about the paralysis of analysis. How is that happening to us as black people, that we analyze too much, that we get to a point where we paralyze ourselves with the thinking?
Because you don't take the streets. You see, we have had a history when we fail to take the streets about issues, where unless we threaten that we're not going to do it in a very, vocal, not just vocal, but threaten it that we're no longer going to line the streets. For example, one of the things I suggested that I wanted to make a bonfire of all the degrees that I got from the University of the West Indies as a man to remove this woman as any head of the University of the West Indies. We, the graduates, need to say we're going to make a big bonfire. We set a date where we're going to throw degrees in a big fire unless she's removed as the head of the University of the West Indies. I am totally embarrassed to know that this is happening.
And we cannot allow you alone to do that. So others, we will study England for one must catch the fire. But
yes, light the cane fields. You think they're going to free us unless we light the cane fields? I don't mean the cane fields literally, don't get me wrong, but the cane fields in terms of the source of our oppression.
Metaphorically,
that's what we do.
Yes. So that Bert, you're saying that there has to be action, and we know that there has to be action. And the last time you were here, I'm telling you that people were galvanized really to the point of almost action. But I got a sense, and I'm saying this honestly, that we tend to be waiting. There's this dependence on a leader. There must be a leader. Why must there be a leader? Who will first just move, just do something?
Well, we have to go back to the likes of Taki. We have to go back to the likes of Bogle to see that, when it didn't work, when a petition didn't work, and we've been petitioning, we've been talking, then they decide, listen, we're going to just have to, take to the hills and deal with it, literally, and take them on, because they're not going to give it to us. And that is why, back to this question of the Commonwealth, we're going to have a program for that one day, because one has to analyze what this grouping of nations was about. Remember that when she was fighting her two world wars in the European tribal war, called World War I and II, she just gathered us, and we had to go up to Europe and fight wars for her. And then after a while, she now requires visas to visit London. She's through with us. She's through with us. She doesn't need any boots on the ground anymore. So we now have to apply for a visa to go to England after we went there to fight 2 wars for her.
Mm-hmm. And this is so from election to election, to wrap this, my brother Bert, from election to election, we have had these conversations. No change. Sometimes people's egos are stoked, and sometimes, when you want to quiet the activists, you make a statement to the effect that, all right, we're going to address this, when you have no intention of addressing it.
Without timelines.
Yes, without timeline. Today, we expect that the Prime Minister will announce a date for another general election. You have said to us, it is not, this is not in any other manifestos that you see.
Yeah, I haven't seen not the last one wanted to be published. So
what then?
But so all the persons who are going to these public meetings from both parties, get your placards ready to put it as a demand at both political meetings. You need to make it part of there, and then let's see the response. Maybe that's the action plan that we should have. That public meetings, those of us who believe that the monarchy must go, should placard both parties and see if they will put it on part of their agenda and eventually manifesto, and then it becomes, that she's removed from our, she's too up in our faces.
Well, Sam Sharp,
Samuel Sharp.
That is Sharp, my friend.
Yes.
We
What
thank
an
you
honor to be called Daddy Sharp.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you so much. Thank you so much for the work that you continue to do and for making yourself available when we call to help us to understand. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you too, Kabu, for the opportunity to speak.
All right, Bert Samuels there, Pan-African attorney at law. One of the issues that is a vexing issue that continues to dog the Jamaican, the nation of Jamaica, even as we situate ourselves within the liberation process, that we know and are committed to the fight against continued oppression, against injustice, a fight for equality, but also for full freedom, for full liberation. The emancipation should have been, and our ancestors fought for this. And we talk about Daddy Sharp just now. So I am Samuel Sharp in this time. I am Queen Nanny in this time. I am Nzinga in this time. I am Ya Santua in this time. And so they fought, and the process led them to the point of emancipation. Now, the promise that was emancipation was not fulfilled, because that, at the end of the day, we ended up with neo-colonization. We ended up with a situation where we appeared to be free, but we weren't quite. So the shackles came off. The chains and the physical shackles came off. There are numerous ways, including the psychic trauma, that we continued to wear those chains in our minds and on our brains. But outside of that, physically, they instituted a system whereby the enslaver became the absentee enslaver and was now placed in her place or his place, depending on who on the throne at what time, was placed something called a governor general, or someone called a governor general. The Queen of England remains the head of state, and little by little, we're hearing more and more about how entrenched that is in every single institution and life, policies, etc. of our nation, so that to unwind this and to untangle these enslavers from our nation, from the processes of government, we have to hold that string and just unravel. And if we need to crochet back, when we're done, and knit back, when we're done, we knit our own material. And it cannot happen anyway apart from it unraveling. So that part of that unraveling process is going to include that they're going to be hands off when it comes to aid. Black people love aid too much. African people love aid too much. Bad debt. Let us read that book, Bad Debt. At some point, we are going to have to say to a nation and to call a nation together to say these are the reasons why we have to shed the new enslavers and the old enslavers, new enslavers, including the IMF, of course. And I see Gary Nichols on Facebook. It says, tell the children the truth. My sister, they're related. They live in the same house, Mr. Gordon House. Yes, I think you're talking about the two-headed monster. And now it's a three-headed monster because the church is very much entrenched in that. We're not paying any attention to it, but we need to pay attention to the extent to which the church props up nastiness. And you say, interesting discussion with you and Mr. Samuel, Sister Kabu. Always enlightened. Thank you so much. By the way, Dr. Clinton Hutton's public lecture, Bakra Can't Catch Duppy, No, Marching into War or with the Spirits at Morant Bay, takes place in the Neville Hall Lecture Theatre. That's N1, UWI Mona, on Thursday, February 4, beginning at 7 p.m. So Dr. Clinton Hutton's public lecture is entitled, Bakra Can't Catch Duppy, No, Marching into War with the Spirits at Morant Bay. This is on Thursday, February 4 at 7 p.m. in the Neville Hall Lecture Theatre. Please write the dates down for February 12, 6 a.m. to at 6 a.m. on February 12 to 2 a.m. the next day. Tribute to Jack Ruby at James Avenue, Music Avenue. And February 18, Culture Yard in the IRFM Courtyard. February 26 to 28, the weekend we have put aside for the Peter Tosh Festival at the Belmont Academy. We will talk to you about that again once we have heard the announcement of the election date, because that in some ways I'm sure will impact what we plan to do in Westmoreland. You're inside of the Africa Forum. It is Running African.
Speak truth to the people. To identify the enemy is to free the mind. Free the mind of the people. Speak to the mind of the people. Speak truth.
Got to find a solution to this pollution. Oh, oh, oh. Got to find a solution to this pollution. Yeah. Got to find a solution to this pollution. Oh, got to find a solution to this pollution. The poor man I feel that
Only thing is that the poor man don't necessarily know that today, because he's been, they've been neatly propped up with the amount of politics money. As they headed to Kingston, they don't know they're feeling it today at all. Not until about next time after holiday, after school give holiday and children to go back to school. And then they flood the politicians' offices again for the handout. It is what it is. So everything gone up, but nobody not feeling it today, because guess what? They've hypnotized you into going into halfway tree, and you're heading there now. And you're waiting for that date to vote them in or out. Up to you. So we still have numerous issues to look at, numerous issues affecting the people of Jamaica. And even while we're doing that, we hear as an aside that the Ministry, and you must have heard this before, of Health has confirmed one case of the Zika virus in Jamaica. We're very near panic, so we have to be very careful about how we report on the Zika virus, what we say about the Zika virus, and also to put things in perspective. You know, all right, we'll come back to that. But so that there's one case that has been identified in Jamaica. The patient, we understand, has now recovered. It's a 4-year-old child. And this was in Port St. Catherine. The child, we understand, had just traveled to Texas and returned to the island. What does that say? What does that mean? I'm sure you'll hear much more about that. But that's the latest we're hearing on the Zika virus. We're also hearing questions, and thank you, my sister Aldis, and also Imani Tafari. We've been looking at that ourselves about how the Zika might be connected to the move that Brazil made recently to introduce genetically modified mosquitoes into Brazil and hence into South America. We can talk about that. We have to talk about that, because at the time that the GMO mosquitoes were being introduced into Brazil, the questions that were asked, and one of the questions actually that was asked was, what do we know about if these mosquitoes will be able to transmit a new kind of disease or an old disease that was there before? What do we know about what they're able to do? They were introduced at the time of the chikungunya, and it was, I think, to do specifically with dengue. So there's a whole lot of conversation about the fact that, yes, it's a male and they've died before they reach maturity, and they'll ensure that the females, that the population is killed out in no time. But then the question that wasn't answered was, what damage would they have been able to do before they die? That question was asked. Remember, we discussed that here. That question was never answered. I wasn't the one who asked it. It was other people who were asking those questions very concerned about this. All right, so we're looking today. We understand that there's a big mass rally in halfway tree. The PNP out there. We understand that there's going to be the announcement of the elections, the pending elections. That we had a false start on that. People are speculating, and we hear people throwing around a date of February 29. That date is so out there. You see, everybody's saying it's going to be February 29. That's interesting. But even while this is happening, through Pan-African lenses and critical thinkers, there's much more we're going to do. We're going to ask, what are some of the challenges facing the country even as we get ready for another election? And challenges, of course, that are following us from election to election. And how do we deal with these? We are joined in the studio this morning by attorney at law, Linton Gordon. Good morning, Mr. Linton Gordon.
Morning, Cabo.
Another early riser. He was here from 6 o'clock, would have jogged at about 4. Thank you so much for coming in.
You're welcome.
For coming in, sir. Devon Evans, thank you, my brother, veteran journalist. Devon, we have your microphone on? Yes, I think so. Yeah. I think so. Yeah. Say that again, Devon, because...
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. All right, great. Thank you for coming in, Devon. Veteran journalist, former news editor here at IRI FM, has covered politics inside out forever in Jamaica, so knows a lot about even what is what we're experiencing on the ground today. All right, so I'm going to start with you, Mr. Linton Gordon, because we just heard from Bert Samuels as an attorney speaking to one of the issues that has been dogging us from election to election. We have many more like those, don't we?
Yes, and we have it in the court system. And I join the sentiments expressed by my learned friend and brother, Mr. Bert Samuels. The problem we are having in the court system is that the political directorate on both sides have not been able to come together and make a determination of what is to happen to our final Court of Appeal. It continues to be the Privy Council. That is to say, we are actually appealing to Her Majesty's appointed Privy Councillors in England, many of whom have never been to Jamaica and have no idea what we look like, how we live, or how our system operates. Now, there have been some very important developments recently. At present, the President of the Court of Appeal was trained as an attorney in the Caribbean. His Lordship, Mr. Justice Dennis Morrison, attended the Norman Manley Law School and qualified as an attorney. The Chief Justice also qualified at that school. Nearly all the judges are graduates, the present judges, except for maybe 3, in the High Court and in the Magistrate Courts, are graduates of our local school. What we are saying to ourselves is that despite all of that, we are not sufficiently good enough to constitute a final court to determine issues touching and concerning us. We must continue to send it to England because somehow these white people in England have more senses than we do. And I think that that is something that should become a part of the issue for this election. Who are the ones in Parliament supporting us continuing the connection with Her Majesty's Privy Council? And who are the ones who believe that persons such as the President of the Court of Appeal, the Chief Justice of Jamaica, and all the judges trained here are good enough to constitute a court, which is our final court.
And once we have made that determination, then what?
Well, at least the electorate should ask the persons putting up themselves for representation to say what is their position, and are they saying that these persons, including the 2 I've named, are they saying they are not good enough? And the other judges are not good enough to continue up to the Caribbean Court of Justice, which becomes our final court. Are we saying we are not good enough to make our own court? We have to continue to depend on Her Majesty to dispense final justice, final decisions about our justice system.
And the question remains, why is it that these are issues that keep recurring? Why is it that we have to be dealing with this and this is connected to the monarchy, of course, and the whole discussion about the head of state, because once that is dealt with, obviously that whole Privy Council
well, as Bert said, the courts are opened. God save the Queen. Each time we open the court, we beg God to save the Queen, not to save us, nor the judge, nor anyone. We are still subjects of Her Majesty. You, as a Jamaican citizen, are a subject of Her Majesty.
You're not talking me. When you say you, is not me.
Me and all of us. As long as we are Jamaican citizens.
I am not in that category, and me, you're going to talk about that later.
Well,
please X me out.
Legally, that's what we are.
Oh, really?
Although we consciously object to and reject it. But the reality is that so long as Her Majesty is head of our government, we are obliged to acknowledge her as our leader and the ultimate entity.
And that is offensive to me.
It is, but that's the constitutional situation.
It is this offense that I think that must drive action on our part. All right, I want to come back to you, Devon, and we're just picking up from the conversation with Bert before we launch out into our conversation. The issue of the monarchy is one that has been dogging us forever, we've been saying. And I just asked Linton, there are others, but of course this is directly connected to the very same issue of the monarchy.
Yes.
You know, and any other issue you can think of that we've been going from election to election to election on monarchy or otherwise?
Well, our education, our social services, you know, we have been fooling around our education system from the time of Michael Mann. You remember, I think it was a 77 election in Michael Mann promised us that 76 election that promised university students that the tuition fee will be freed and several other things. And after the election, he had to come back and say, boy, when you look at the situation, they cannot afford to free university fees. So, you know, all of the early child education, we hear both sides campaign at each election. Early child education is the way forward. Early child education is this. And up to now, about 3% of the total budget goes to early childhood education. Housing is another thing. We hear housing, we see the NHT using surplus money to do all sorts of things. And we are not seeing the housing development. In fact, most housing development is taking place, but it's private sector housing development. So all
priced out of the reach of the
reach of
ordinary working people.
Ordinary working.
Teachers,
our social services,
public sector workers, yes.
Our beaches.
Yes.
You know, as poor people, one of the best thing you can, even if you don't have any money, you just go to the beach on Sunday and lay back, relax and cool out. Our beaches are gone.
Not anymore.
You know, and we hear these things election after election, people promise we're going to look at this and they never get to it.
Why do we have this inaction, though, and on issues, those housing, land ownership, access to our beaches? As a matter of fact, the inaction in terms of access to our beaches is the wrong word. It's not inaction. There's serious action on the beach, but what is happening is that they're being privatized.
Yes.
They're being given away. But Linton, why do we have this inaction? Is it that the electorate themselves, that the people are not calling for this kind of a change? Critical issues like land ownership and housing.
Yes, that is part of it. It's difficult to properly analyze the relationship between the mass of electorates and the political hierarchy or leadership. And I say this because when you look at the way the political directorate uses national resources, as Evan has said, the public beaches if you'll recall, Little Duns River was only saved because of the leadership of the clergy and others who demonstrated.
I wish you to put things in perspective properly.
Among others.
Because we took a serious stance here.
I agree, but I remember.
And brought in the clergy. We, as a matter of fact, we were there with them. And why I'm doing this is because in this space, we give credence to history, and we don't want to go in search of this information.
No, that's
later.
fine. There are several involved. I have no problem with that. The point I'm making is that had there not been intervention by persons who said it's not going to be allowed, that one would have
literally
gone.
Had to liberate the beach, but it is still not safe. That's the thing. It is still not safe.
And it's still not properly developed and organized so that the public can be safe, comfortable there.
A similar thing with Winifred Beach. We see what happened with Fisherman's Beach and so on. But this is from Negril Point to Morant Point.
So I think what is happening is that somehow the electorates do not insist sufficiently on these matters. Take housing that was mentioned. The housing trust funds are being used for a multiplicity of purposes, but not necessarily primarily for the provision of housing. And there are instances where quite an amount of the funds are used to provide housing in the inner city for persons who are not contributing. And the question is this: is it fair for an office helper in notarius to pay housing trust and not qualify to get a little house, but on her way to Coronation Market, she's passing these 4-story houses that are built by her contribution for the benefit of persons who are not contributing?
But
that is a reality.
This very same office helper, before you make the point, is now on our way to
Kingston.
Yes. Yes, go ahead.
I am saying that there's a vested interest among the politicians to maintain the status quo. And then the followers now, like this household helper, they get excited when the trumpet is sounded, but after they don't follow up on these things because, they don't follow up on these things because we have no problem with the little inner city people getting their houses. They deserve those inner city houses. And we are saying there's enough money in the coffers of the housing trust to give the household helpers and the other people outside the country their own, but there's not much agitation among the people. People are not demanding these rights.
Can I ask you, can persons demand rights if they don't even know that they have the rights?
That's enough. Well, as I said, there's a vested interest to maintain the status quo, and so one of the things is to keep the people out of the light. They are doing, although they will have you there, people jumping around and saying, yes, this is my party and we will follow this party till we die. But the persons at the head, they have another agenda separate from the people's agenda. So that's why time and time will pass and you will never find the people's issues being addressed, regardless of what even when the politicians go on stage and say, yes, we know you're going to need that, and yes, we know you're not getting it, and will blame the other side. But after the election, the same blame that you're casting on that side, you find yourself in a similar position. So I don't think if the people don't come forward and demand these changes, we will not get these changes.
What does it take for people to demand? What I'm trying to get at is that do we have a mainly ignorant electorate?
No, you see, we have to look at our political tradition. The two parties have a deep and well-established connection in Jamaica, and that is grounded in a sort of combination of family, traditional, and community connection that in a way there are persons that will forgive the parties for doing just about anything. You go to a community that is a strong Jamaica Labour Party base, and yet still, while the JLP is in power, little or nothing by way of progress takes place there. You'll go to another one that is a strong PMP community, and nothing takes place there. But they will nonetheless vote for that party.
And as I said that, Linton, interestingly, let us take a little district like Hopewell, Marlborough in St. Mary. Dr. Guy is now the member of parliament there. That community has been predominantly PNP for a very, very long time.
Yes.
There is a piece of road in that community where the river is reclaiming the land. And houses are tithering to that. The Water Commission was trying to get water to a family there 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
And the truck had to turn back because the driver got so afraid. Only one wheel could hold on the piece of road. Now, interestingly enough, that community has never voted JLP.
That's the point. That's the point I made earlier.
That year when Siaga won, I think, that, you remember the 80s?
Yes.
Right. So but isn't there, I know it's a community and family and so on, but isn't there a level of ignorance in all of that? Is it that, me no know.
I don't want to call it ignorance. I want to say it, I would describe it as fanatical commitment to a party, consciously committed to it.
Yes.
Because I can say the same about my community, Walker's Wood. It's a strong PMP area, and if you were to see the road leading down to Cottage, you would cry. And it's there, it's in Lisa Hanna's constituency. It's there like that for years. The oldest citizen in Walker's Wood, the road leading to her home, is a scandal and a disgrace. She can't even walk out to the road. And it's there for years. And people have complained, nothing is done. It's a strong PMP area, so I suppose I don't have to give that priority because I'll get their vote in any event. No. When, if at all, will we get change from this tradition and this custom? I believe the solution is education. It is when there is a level of enlightenment, not just formal education such as degree, but a wide understanding of the purpose, the role and the responsibility of a political representative. Then people will say, last year I voted for you, the PMP, this year I'm going to vote JLP because I think this guy they have put, he'll do a better job than you. And the next time, I'm PMP again. And it's more fluid. Our democracy will be richer and people will no longer be committed in a fanatical way to a party, but to progress.
It seems to me also, Devon, that while we talk about the electorate needing to be enlightened, and once that process is put in place, we might see change. We should see change. But it seems to me that those who put themselves up to represent us, that they themselves are coming out of that process of darkness, not being enlightened.
Yes.
And so that when they find themselves elected as in this representative democracy, they do not necessarily, they themselves think that they are there to serve their own purpose and them friends.
That is so.
And their party, and when they mention the party is not the wide population, it's just the executive, right? People, the fanatical commitment that Mr. Gordon spoke about is real. You will follow Buster Man till we die. That is, you don't have to do anything good or bad. We'll follow Buster Man till I don't know the slogan for the PNP, but that is how people focus, and the politicians make the best use of it, because when they have resources, they know we don't need to spend in your community, regardless. We have their votes already, so we don't need to spend there. And I will spend the money amongst our friends, or what we feel are our priorities and not the people's priorities.
You talked earlier, Devon, about people getting excited when the gate fly and the trumpet sound and all of that. It's kind of a Pavlov dog kind of situation. I'm wondering, what would it have? What has led our people to this place that when that trumpet sound, is the same salivating? There's a psychological problem here.
No, it's all.
Yes, Linton, there has to be.
It is all part of our political tradition, and I have to say
that's what I meant. It's a political tradition, but it's something psychic.
It is. And it is a feature of our democracy that we should be proud of.
Oh, really?
Not why they are going there, But the fact that there's so much freedom in this country that a party in opposition can gather its members and have a public meeting undisturbed and uninterfered with. And the same thing is said of the ruling party. It's democracy. And we must never look down at
but it is the type of democracy that we have benefited from.
It might be so, but when you look throughout the world and several other countries that gain independence around the time we did, several of them are failed states, oppressive, murders, killing of opponents, and all sort of really outrageous activities. And here we are, JLP and PNP can meet together, drink, happy, whether we like what they are doing or not. It is democracy.
And I tell
but and it is hypocrisy too.
Explain that to us, Devon.
You know, yeah, because no, we are here. First of all, no, the first we went wrong is that when our democracy was sorted out by two cousins, and it came after the period when Marcus Garvey came here and established modern politics in Jamaica.
We are inside of the Africa Forum, and today, a very important day in Jamaica's history, and even more so, and probably the Prime Minister did play her hand right, because the excitement around the call to Halfway Tree is something else today. So that there's a call to a mass rally in Halfway Tree today, where it is expected that the Prime Minister will announce the date for the general elections. We are discussing the issues, the challenges facing the Jamaican nation from election to election, regardless of who called the election, when, where, and how. In the studio with me, Pan-African attorney at law, because we have a few, Devon, Linton Gordon, and Devon Evans, a veteran journalist and a politician himself, having been a founding member of the Marcus Garvey's People's Political Party. And that leads us right back to where you were, Devon. We were saying that at the time of Marcus Garvey's...
yes, in 1929, Marcus Garvey established Jamaica's first modern political party and gave us the framework to move forward. But what we find is that when the establishment of the People's National Party, that the idea of Marcus Garvey was totally discarded, not really torn up and thrown away, because we find that when the PNP was launched, they used some of Marcus Garvey's ideas, and we find later on when the split in the PNP that forced Bustamante to go and form his JLP, we find some of that. But
so you're saying it's hypocrisy? You're saying
hypocrisy because we had the template there we allowed the parties to get together and destroy what Marcus Garvey left. And no, it was not until about 1972 when Michael Manley came into power. Michael Manley started to bring forward some of those Marcus Garvey ideas, the social services, housing. If you go back and look at Marcus Garvey's manifesto in 1929, you see all of those things there. And if we had worked on those things in the interest of the people, Jamaica would be better off now. But I say there's a vested interest to maintain the status quo in a similar way we're maintaining the Queen and those things.
How do you respond to that, Linton? Because you talked about the rich democracy and the level of freedom that allows us to gather in political
Marcus Garvey's contribution is beyond any doubt of the greatest when it came to establishing a political tradition in this country. But where I will differ from, and I agree that both current political parties have taken parts of his manifesto into theirs. My position on that is that nothing is wrong with that. I mean, if you copy what is good, whether from a party in England, from Marcus Garvey in Cuba or in Russia or anywhere, if there's something in that party that is good, a policy that is worthy, then emulate it, copy it, and bring it into policy. So nothing is wrong with that. Now, the part of a democratic tradition is that persons are entitled to emerge and establish their political parties as they believe or as they see fit. So that if following on Marcus Garvey's contribution, Bustamante and Norman Manley built on it and established the PNP and the JLP, it is part of our democratic tradition, and it is nothing to be condemned.
And then you use the word emerge. You say to emerge as they see fit.
Yes.
And so let us talk about that emergence of the parties.
Yes.
And into what?
Well, into an independent party, independent of our Marcus Garvey's party, the PNP, and the JLP, and they were there in 1944 for the first election, which was with universal adult suffrage. Now, what the PNP has become, or the JLP has become, is a matter for current day critique and analysis and all of that. But what cannot be denied is that for over 50 years, these two parties have dominated the political landscape of Jamaica, and they have survived because of a democratic tradition where citizens of Jamaica support them.
They have survived. Is it fair to say that they have survived because of a democratic tradition? Because it seems to me that young as I may be, right? It seems to me that there has been a protracted period of democracy at the barrel of the gun in Jamaica, which we cannot and must not ignore, even to this day. And we see garrison communities. Yes. I don't know what role the kind of garrison that we see in Jamaica.
Well, let's
certainly not cricket garrisons.
Yes. Well, look at the whole question of violence and all that. It is true that there have been periods when there was widespread violence connected to political activities in Jamaica. It reached the ultimate in the coming up to the 1980 election. What we must understand, however, is that those activities, they affected that election, no doubt, but they never destroyed democracy in Jamaica. They might have interfered with it, but destroying it meaning that people cannot anymore express their views or opinions or form their own party. That never occurred.
But there is an arrested development of democracy in Jamaica, even as we speak, coming out of that. Because look, and let us go back to the garrisons. You see this conversation we're having here?
Yes.
I will get a threat when I leave here. And I get threats almost every Sunday when I walk away from here.
Okay.
From gangsters in political parties. Not only gangsters, we're talking about what you call gunman gangster. From even politician gangsters.
Okay.
And people representing the party. So
well, let us leave
the kind of freedom that we're talking about.
Let us take a look at the whole question of garrisons. Garrisons are established by politicians who see that as a means of ensuring victory at the polls, and is an interference and a degradation of our democratic process. So where there are garrison constituencies, and these are primarily in St. Catherine, St. James, and in Kingston, but they are emerging elsewhere, because some persons are of the view that they are even in St. Ann now.
Yes.
But
yes, they're in St. Ann. We must face. Well, it is what it is.
Wherever those exist, what happens is that a politician tries to get housing or capture land or informal settlements or squatter settlements and place a number of persons there. And when I come back to commenting on the court system and the challenge with jurors in St. Ann, I will touch on that. And what that does is to deny the democratic process by preventing persons who may have opposing view to the party of that member of parliament or leader or opposition representative from living free and democratic and having his or her own.
And sometimes you must need to understand that it's not only the politicians but the people establish their garrisons too, because they realize that if they establish this enclave, they will control whatever in this era, and the politician will come and give them the strength. So, and I already mentioned that the politician who saved I think any saving of democracy in Jamaica was saved by the people. Because we don't...
It's to be saved by the people.
Yeah,
because I think our democracy is at risk.
Yeah, it's at risk. And any saving, we are trying to save it.
I'm not a proponent of no democracy, I'm just taking part in the conversation because it's an ongoing, because I don't even know what that is up to this day.
And Kabul, I don't want to miss.
The by the people part of it, I don't understand. But go on.
We didn't even mention international intervention in our politics.
That's occurred, I agree.
It is clear in the 1980s, it is very clear that there was international intervention, and all these guns that were on the street, this killing, it was international. People were saying CIA and all that, but we know it was
what has this violent and you use the term to Linton, what has this violent part of our history done to us as a people? And this is why I talk to you about arrested development of democracy, because how have we developed? What has happened to us psychologically? What happened to our minds? What happened to
Look at Jamaica now.
How we function, how we treat each other, how we talk to each other, how we see each other. Why is it that green make you behave a certain way and orange make you behave a certain way? And that's why I talk about Pavlov dogs. Something is wrong.
We were cultured that way.
Democracy.
I say international intervention.
May I suggest and think it through? I don't think the violence we are experiencing now is between JLP and PNP.
No.
It is between gangs and drug running more than anything else. And to touch on something...
Bred out of a situation where guns were put in the hands of...
But Evan made a very important point, and I just want to add, where he said that the wrongdoers, the druggists and the gangsters would establish a garrison, and then the politician will come in. I just want to add that he's absolutely correct. Yes. But what happens in that situation? The gangster is ruling the politician, whether he's MP or not.
And he does it because it is what is done. Because he knows that is a system. It's an informal system that if we set up ourselves right here, the politician will ultimately come in and has no right and ensure that.
So that's very important. And that is also a threat to our democracy. It's a threat in that it denies those citizens the right to make a choice and to express an opinion contrary to the political sympathy of the Don or the MP for the area. And whether it is a PMP or a JLP garrison, it's a threat to our democracy.
And we make a lot of these Dons international heroes and give them all kinds of professorship and so on. I cannot...
I will give them the biggest government contracts.
I think that we have a responsibility in this time to call it. You see, the election the date that is going to be called at halfway through, that is not calling it. We have to call it as we see it and bring people to face their past, bring people to face their responsibilities and tell them so they must be demand from them that they be part of the change. Because we have washed them, they have taken off, some of them take off them gabardine and put on jacket and tie. Right, and they have taken off the gangster and the Don chain, and they have put on something else, and they're talking pristine English, right, in the Queen's English, and now they're teaching our children and all kinds of stuff. I think we have to call it, because if we make these people into national heroes, what we are saying to our young people is that crime pays. It don't matter. You don't have to be anything apart from follow that example. And then what happens to democracy? You said democracy is under threat in Jamaica. Of course it is under threat.
You see,
it is under threat.
We have given up all our responsibility. In fact, we have become part of what they call the international community. So that's why we find certain deviant behaviors and other things creeping up on us, and it's like we cannot stop it. People are saying to the people, it's something that you can't stop. You know, that's why we say, and Kabu, we have to take things and bring them to book. First of all, we need our politicians need to come to us as a people, come to our communities. Any community center, we need to have them come. We need to talk. If we have a democracy, we don't need somebody to talk down to us. We need to sit around the table and we discuss issues. That is when we're going to say we have a democracy. But what we have now is a dictatorship.
And can I ask you a question from many different angles? Can I ask you a question about politicians who are members of parliament for garrisons?
And the question is?
And the question is, how do we allow that to continue?
Okay.
Yes.
Remember now, for want of a better expression, a garrison is not an illegal entity in Jamaica. There's nothing, you can't go and charge someone and say you have committed a crime by establishing a garrison. It's not, a garrison is established. It started out with the houses are being built, and then you corruptly select persons to get in there. Then you make sure they get the contract, as Evan said, and it's built over an extensive or extended period of time. So by the time you look and say, oh Lord, that's a garrison they have put there, all the trails and so are gone, but we know how it is built. That's one. Two, it is going to take the activities of young people like you, Kabu, to really speak out and to build each other's confidence and to insist that we change. Change meaning not just boycotting election, because if you look what is happening now and you do an informal survey, a significant number of young persons just say, "Me not vote." He told them I see him. No. But that's not what is needed. It is needed for them to take a step further and to insist that certain things be changed, the way we do things, be changed, and that a different approach be taken. Until that is done, then we will always complain. And
what about if they I hear you on how garrisons are built and
yes.
So for some of these, the same politician has presided over the building, etc., and remain a member of parliament there for years.
Yes.
So very clear who the person is, our persons.
Yes.
So sometimes it's one or two. We look at West Kingston, for example. We can identify what went on there or what went on there, and enough things, and nobody has been called out on any of that. I know you're sitting on the thing now, so we're not bringing that in place, the Commission of Inquiry. So I don't mean to do that. But then there's also, is the Prime Minister's constituency considered a garrison?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
There's something something is morally wrong with that. Morally, and I know you're going to go legal because you're a lawyer, but hold on for the legal a while.
No, morally, I agree with, because you see, the question of morality and legality, they are two different things.
I know.
And there are several examples I can give. The fact is, the politicians on both sides have never, ever taken any steps to deal with the garrisonization of communities, especially in Lower St. Andrew and Kingston, St. Catherine, Montego Bay, and say St. Anne. And until that is done, we can complain, we can criticize, but the fact is, the people in the garrison are happy for a number of reasons. You'd be surprised. You must visit sometime. I'll take you.
People create these garrisons.
I've been, believe me, I've been.
Yeah.
And we, Devon, I'm going to come right here, but to talk about garrisons, we went in there to build, in one of the garrisons, to build a computer lab and a guidance counseling room for a school.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, our protection came not from the police. Go ahead, Devon.
Yes, that's why I say the people the people have the power, you know. That's why I say it need a mindset, a change in the mindset to let these people in the garrison can look amongst themselves and select a leader, because that's how we're gonna rip apart this so-called democracy. Look, instead of a big man coming into the garrison and say, well, I will be the leader and I'll spend X, Y, Z. Look amongst yourself, select your leader. So first of all,
what is a Dan you come out with? Is a gangster you come out with? A drug lord? In some cases,
well,
when you do that,
in some it changes that.
And the drug lord facilitated.
No, most of these drug lords they will be in the back. But they say
who facilitate these persons in the garrisons? Because don't tell me that they are not known. That's another question.
Well,
as we look forward to the election date. Me can quickly say, as 8 minutes to wrap up in this segment, but we should take some calls with you here. We have Haile Mikel and Asta Black. But do you think that the Prime Minister will call the election today? They announce a date today?
Well, she said earlier in the week that she has been touched by the Lord.
Did she say the Lord or her master?
Her master.
That's two different things.
Yeah. Well, her master, and while the master's touch her, we know it's a foregone conclusion that we'll get this election.
So if it is called today, Linton, it's all over the social media that it's February 29. That according to what we know.
The election will either be Tuesday the 15th or the 22nd of March.
So me I go with Linton though, because Linton never get to that.
I don't think they are going to have a long period of campaigning.
So what about the 29th? Why are people saying the 29th?
I don't think legally they could have it on the 29th, because you see, after the date is announced, you need 5 to 7 days for nomination day.
And that takes us to what?
Well, the date will have to be treated as Monday the 1st.
Right.
So that will take you to the 7th. And then the election must be not less than 16 days away, nor more than 23. And I don't think you'd want it so short, because you're going to have debates and mass meetings and all that. And bearing in mind that there's a holiday, the 10th of February is Ash Wednesday, they would only have basically two weeks of campaigning, 2-3 weeks at most. So I think she will go for a little before Easter. If that is not looked at as convenient, I think they'll go as far as the 29th of April. Sorry, the 26th of April. So I'm giving 3 dates, the 15th of March, 22nd of March, or the 26th of April.
So you don't see it in February at all?
No, I don't think they're going to have it in February.
I don't like to pinpoint dates in these things, but I'm saying that the election will have to be called before the budget, and we have been promised an early budget. So if we have been promised an early
budget would be in April, so they have it in March. They're still ahead of the budget.
And many feel that it won't happen before China Highway is opened.
Well, I think China Highway, they're going to be giving us free run. They had promised this month that
within the next 2 weeks we might see the opening of China Highway.
The free run.
I don't want to set an opening because it would call China Highway, but thank you very much for just going with it.
Yeah, you realize.
What
you say, North, South, Highway. But listen.
But that's what we call it in this form.
Yeah, this form, the China Highway. Yes. Well, I'm saying it's interesting times, and I say the people need to come forward now and take charge of their democracy. We are losing this, regardless of what people are saying. We have been a healthy democracy. We are losing this democracy, and we are not looking at the outside intervention that is transforming our own thinking and soon transform our way of life here in Jamaica, the outside intervention. So we have to be strong as Jamaicans and don't just throw ourselves to the fire as politics, what do you call supporters, you know. If this is our party, we need to take charge of this party. We need to tell our leaders what we need, what they need to do for us, and not sit by and wait. You know that some communities haven't seen their member of parliament since the last election.
Well, they'll certainly see them now. Final words from you, sorry, Linton.
Yes, the question
you're finished that one, sorry, because we come out to cash back. Yes.
Yeah, the question of our connection with international entities and governments and so, it's inevitable. The reality is that the main source of FID, foreign investment, FDI, sorry, is no longer the United States nor England. It's China, it's Mexico, it's Spain, and Venezuela to a lesser extent. And we have to face that reality that we need resources to advance the country. Yeah. And whoever comes, we are to arrange the best terms in the interest of Jamaica. And having arranged those terms, we proceed with the project for the benefit of Jamaica.
Yes, but we have to understand that we are powerful in that respect, especially in our negotiations with China, because I think that from what I'm seeing is that there is this idea among the ruling class that we're very poor and we're very weak. Yes. And so we go out with outstretched arms and we're begging, not understanding that
what we get instead of demanding what we need. Yes. And that is the change that I want to see.
And this is where we have a serious problem, because if we do not leverage our relationship with China, then we have in effect what we have done is to re-enslave, be the architects of our own re-enslavement.
Our own enslavement.
China, it is what it is. It's colonial settlement colonialism that China is involved in. We know that. How do we leverage that? That's what they're doing across the world.
I don't share that view. I don't think foreign investment is necessarily can be equated with colonization.
I'm not equating the two at all, Okay. I am saying to you that there is and it's not colonization either, it's settlement colonialism, which is you come in and you settle. And we see it across the continent of Africa. China has set that precedent in Africa. We can learn from that.
They are investing heavily in England now.
Exactly, so but it's not the same thing. It's different from their engagement
in Portugal.
With England. Yes.
No, they want to take a different approach in England, because the authorities in England will demand what they need, unlike we will go with outstretched arms and take what we get.
Yes.
So
China is on a military expedition, and I said it last week and I'll say it again. I don't know if we'll be able to pick it up, that we have to be conscious and cognizant of China's military expeditionary capabilities. We don't talk about that anywhere, apart from in this forum. But we need to talk about that, because we see it unfolding on the continent of Africa. Wherever U.S. combatant commands are, China is there. And there's a Cold War, regardless of what they say, happening between China and the U.S. Caribbean and African countries can leverage that.
True, I agree.
We find ourselves drawn into middle. We have a gem here in Jamaica. We must demand the best value and not to give away our island like that.
Well, March, give us a date again. We are literally calling it here. March, we have 3 dates, by the way.
15th or the 22nd of March.
Right, March 15 or 22. You have 3 dates now.
If she's not comfortable with those, it's 26th of April.
Well, there you go. Thank you so much, Mr. Linton Gordon. You have never been wrong. And we have 3 dates working with there. Thank you. Levon, do you agree?
Yeah, I will go along with it.
Thank you so much, Levon. Thank you so much, Linton. Thank you for coming in. I appreciate it.
When we lose our African connection, we lose our world connection. When we disconnect ourselves from Africa, we cease to be a world people. Without the African connection, we are a disjointed people begging for the entry into somebody else's house.
Thank you so much, sis. And talking about the African connection, we're joined in the studio now by our brother Haile Mikel, who we announced earlier, and he announced it before, will be running as an independent candidate in Westmoreland. Haile Mikel, greetings. Welcome to the program. Good to have you. I have the wrong microphone.
Planet.
Yes, go ahead. We're just hearing you. Because
greetings, Sister Cabo, and greetings to listeners in Planet. Yes.
Good to have you. You're coming all the way from Westmoreland. Good to have you in the studio for a very short interview, but good to have you. Anyway, my brother Haile Mikel.
Thanks.
Quick little bit about yourself, because there was a time when you were on this program a whole lot back in the day. Like
Yes,
in the early 90s, you used to be here pretty often.
Yes, people in St. Ann know me as Jerry Chai, and even in Portland also, from the 1980s to 1990s.
Right.
You know, I was known as Richard Anthony Robinson. I changed my name because I became a member of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, having been a dreadlock Rasta for about 12 years.
Right.
And I moved down to Westmoreland, took some of my children down there in 2001, and I've been working in that community mainly as a volunteer itinerant PE and sport teacher at various schools, and doing other community work as well as I'm also a journalist. Used to write with 2 newspapers down there and on radio. Sometimes I still am. I even work with Ira from that side.
That's nice,
so I'm very much involved in the political scene as well as the cultural scene, and I know because of working from my parents always having me listen to news. No matter how much homework, we had to watch news on TV and comment on it. So that's part of my upbringing.
And I suppose in those days, which is not so long ago, you could watch the news without having nightmares?
Well, not really.
We no longer allow our children to watch news.
I remember 1980 elections. I said to my mother one night, the next thing you're going to hear is that they killed one of the candidates. And the next night, the news was that Roy McGann was shot dead.
Wow.
So we've been through it, you know.
Yes, we've been through it. That is true. All right. And so that you announced your candidacy on September 4th. Tell me about your party.
No, I'm not a party. I'm an independent candidate.
Tell me about your independent candidacy.
Okay. Yeah. In that, I have been working. I don't see any need to join a party to get elected because my ideas now will become back burner.
No, so you didn't form a party yourself?
No, I have not formed a party.
So under what, how are you running? I mean, under what name?
The name is Haile Mikhail.
Right.
That's the name. Every name will come on the ballot, you know, and then there's a symbol to say.
What's your symbol?
I've asked for the star. In the local government election 2012, I asked for the star. I got it. I've asked for it again repeatedly up to just since this past week, and I'm looking forward to having it. I'm campaigning with it. Now, my philosophy is that we need to be honest. We need to be honest and tell the people the truth. And in so doing, we can get rid of the corruption. That is my thing. The representation also needs to be for everyone. No segregation. I don't have a list that says who is PNP, who is JLP, who is voting for me or not. I have a list that says who are the constituents, and that's for everybody.
Right, and the constituency is?
Eastern Westmoreland.
Eastern Westmoreland.
Yes.
Tell us about your manifesto. What I hear you talk about corruption, addressing corruption. What else are you looking at?
Okay, I call it my commitment, and I been sending it out from August 14, 2015. That's last year, and it says in part that I want to ensure on the national scene that Parliament serves the interest of everyone in Jamaica. I need to give quarterly projects and financial reports, which I've already started by setting out the first set of my newsletter, volume 2, number 1 for January, and provide training in agricultural education, promote land and infrastructure development. We need to cut out this business about squatting and let the people have the land. Create employment and investment opportunities and get involved in recycling. We have to clean up the country, all this thing about mosquito-borne diseases and all of that. And then also establish community-based organizations for unity, security, and grant funding. Through the community-based organizations now, I'll be able to work directly with every community. That is the idea.
All right. So, and you're in Westmoreland. What are you doing differently from, in just a minute, how do you see yourself different from the two main parties?
I know I'm honest. I know I'm competent. I know I'm well recommended. My resume is very tall. On Heroes Day last year, I was awarded for community development by the Parish Council of Westmoreland and the JCDC. So that speaks volumes as a matter of times of speaking.
Where are you getting your funding from?
I'm asking people who I know won't stick me up at the end, because people love to give so that they can get back something personal. I'm using also my own funds, which is very, very limited. I'm also in debt right now because I have some good persons who can
How can persons contribute who are listening?
Huh?
How can persons contribute who are listening, contribute?
Well, they could call me 865-4240, or they could check my Facebook page, tell me they want to contribute, and that will be good for me and for them also, because I being there will help everybody. Just a comment on quickly.
No, we're out of time. But
quickly
take 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Yeah.
Yes. We need to get rid of the the CCJ, we have a Supreme Court, that means supreme, like what they were talking about earlier, Mr. Gordon. And the third party is really the JLP. So everybody after it must be 4th, 5th, and 6th. JLP and PNP, let it look like we are third party, but that's not it.
All right. Thank you so much, Haile Mikel. Thank you so much for coming in.
Yes, thanks.
All right. Haile Mikel there, independent candidate, Westmoreland East.
The essence of power is the ability to define someone's reality and have them live according to that definition as though it is a definition of their own choosing.
All right, we're back with you inside of the Africa Forum. It is Running Africa.
Got to find a solution to this pollution. Got to find a solution.
Morning to you on Facebook, on the social media. Shicknell Rose, I'm picking up your message. Thank you so much for keeping in touch. Remember you from St. Thomas, my brother. Yes, give thanks. Also, Elton Dexter says Hart Boulevard in upscale Mango Walk, Montego Bay is a new garrison. On one side of the street, property tax and utilities are paid. On the other side, free land, light and water. And he says a councillor acted with stop orders, and by afternoon, by afternoon the MP lifted the stop order. All right, let us look into that, saying that the people won't build concrete structures. And you say today, 10 years later, no wooden structure exists but 3-story buildings. You know, Isis, you and Masaya be cracking me up, you know. So Isis says that was I just reminded her that the election cannot be held on April 21 to April 24. It's the 50th anniversary of Haile Selassie's visit to Jamaica. No, we're not laughing, but we're laughing, you know. So there are many, it's just a small window that the Prime Minister has. So it is what it is, you know. I think what would give her the best of a time there. The first week of March, I think, is the best time. All right, Mama Fire is on the line. Mama Fire, greetings, my sister. Give thanks, Mama Fire. Call her quickly because I know that, you know, we're looking to the observations of ADWA and the plans that you have. Let us know what's going to happen and when.
Yes, sir.
Tell us when you're having the bingy for the ADWA.
Yes, the 1st of March. And to the 3rd. My virgin them was saying that I should go from the 3rd to the 5th because I find the celebration would be really good in this time, you know, because it's the 128th anniversary of the Battle of Adwa this year.
All right, so from the 1st of March to the
5th.
All right, but you're saying that the dates might change a little. We just to keep in touch with you. We'll hear what the real dates are. But it's somewhere between March 1 and March 5. All right.
Negotiate from 3 days and the bridging them and say maybe for the sealing up of it, we might have to go through.
All right. Thank you, Mama Fire. Good talking with you. I just wanted you to come in and give the dates. It sounds as if you're not quite sealed up on it, but you're just reminding people that this is when.
It's Mama Cabo.
Yes, the first week in March. It looks like the election can't call the first week. Thank you, Mama Fire.
I watch them when them go out and keep the fire burning. Love.
Thank you, Mama Fire.
Yes, sir.
Gas gone up, bus fare gone up, rent gone up, phone bill gone up.
You know, if the Pan-African and Rastafari community has anything to do with it, you know, the dates are occupied. They're all taken.
And we can't take this fuss, and there has got to be a solution to this pollution. Yeah. Find a solution to this pollution. The growing, gotta find a solution to this pollution.
To the family on the social media, God family, thank you so much. DJ Riley 254, Selector Princess, my sister, see you at Kevoy Stevens.
The poor man of me,
Janice Smallwood, my sister, thank you so much. Kareen X. Mod Move at Mod Move 10. Mod Move says them I try depopulate the people. Them tell we say Ebola deadly and now me no hear about that again. Now Zik V, shake my head. Yasika, my sister, Yasika Yasanto, at your music read. Thank you for listening as always and participating on social media, driving the discussions on social media. I love that. As we go to the phone lines now to my sister Valerie Dixon of the UNIA. Lady President of Division 454 UNIA. She's been an educator with over 40 years experience teaching at the tertiary level and also an analyst in her own right, looking at the political situation and putting things in perspective over the years, critically analyzing. We really like that. So thank you so much for joining us, Sister Valerie.
Good morning, Kabu, and to all your listeners worldwide and locally.
Okay.
I thank you for inviting me to be on this morning.
Thank you, and thank you for doing the worldwide thing, because we do have our listeners, our family on the internet at irefm.net. So Valerie, before we go into the Marcus Garvey, the fair that's coming up, I know you've been listening. I know that you have very strong opinions too on where we are as a nation. Against the background of the event, the rally at Halfway Tree today, the anticipation that the date will be announced for the election, because there is that anticipation in the air. What are your own thinking regarding where we are, and what are the issues that our political directorate and government in particular need to be addressing, regardless of who's in power?
Kabu, I'm so happy that you asked me that question, because there is a big pink elephant that lives in Jamaica, and nobody talks about that big pink elephant. Mm-hmm. But I came face to face with that beast about last week. Yes. And I believe that the perception as to why it is that one political party is able to win nearly all the elections that have been called since 1944, I think I got my answer last week as to why this perception that one party really rules Jamaica exists. Mm-hmm. And it all came because I was asking, doing follow-ups to letters I had sent out seeking sponsorship for the Marcus Garvey Fair. Now, I want to make it very, very clear to the whole wide world and all of Jamaica that the UNI members, the Garveyites, we do not beg. May I make that clear again? We do not beg. We would not be Garveyites if we became beggars. And so we barter. I need something from you, and I'm going to offer you something with the hope that what I have to offer, you will want, so that it is a win-win situation. Mm-hmm. So we were offering sponsorship because the Marcus Garvey Fair is going to be streamlined or live streamed to the Jamaican diaspora in Toronto, Canada, as well as parts of Florida. Yes. And we're also offering radio advertisement, radio interviews, printed media advertisement, included in all press releases, and the list goes on. Yes. So if you are going to be a sponsor of a certain amount, you would get that and more. If you're going to be another type of sponsor, you would receive that and more. Yes. Well, Corporate Jamaica told me where I could go with my sponsorship letters in no uncertain terms. And I wanted to point out 3 instances where it was so obvious why this perception that one party really runs Jamaica, because I'm going to be straight and upfront with you. Mm-hmm. This has not been, it's not just since today that I've had this reaction to the Marcus Garvey Fair, or rather I should say to Marcus Garvey. It has not, let me repeat, it's not since today.
Yeah.
One manager, and I believe historically, the managers when we were on the slave plantation were called foremen. And it was in their hands that the whip was given. And they looked exactly like us. And they were the front for the owners. Nothing has changed. One manager told me categorically when I showed her the sponsorship letter, she said, "Is where you going with that? No, my dear, take the letter off of that letterhead. Find another letterhead to put it on." And I said, "What do you mean?"
Yes.
It was on the UNIA's letterhead. She said, no. If this reach our head office and they see the word Universal Negro, that going straight into the garbage can.
And why?
And I said, on the grounds that they did not want to be identified with the people's national hero.
Okay.
I'm saying it straight. I'm saying it plain. Because
Valerie, even before you go further, we can even wrap it in, because let me tell you what, I am going to support and acknowledge and also to say to you that we here at IRFM has a very, very, very same response from the private sector and from corporate Jamaica regarding sponsorship of our Marcus Garvey event in August. And so I know exactly what you are talking about. It really is not forthcoming. And it has to do directly with Marcus Garvey. So if you notice that when we put it on every year, we organize this every year. We have Mr. Booth, God bless his soul, from Petcom, and possibly one more person. I can't even think of who now, but we know every year Mr. Booth assists. So that we do have that situation. It is real as ever. I want you to tell me how you're tying that in with the fact that there's that one party has literally dominated governance in Jamaica.
Do not think that this is not recognized, or the one company. Let me just backtrack a little bit. I'm going to give you another instance. One company boasted how much they love Jamaica and that they support ordinary Jamaicans. So I stopped the person and said, "Who is an ordinary Jamaican?" Because I've never met one. But it is that they really don't think they can support Marcus Garvey or the Marcus Garvey Fair. Now, to me, that is racism. Because the people in Jamaica who are Afrocentric are not always in a position to help themselves. So those people are going to need education. They're going to need, as Marcus Garvey would say, improvement.
Yes.
And I want to point out that this is my perception as to how the majority of these people see corporate Jamaica and the private sector, that those people ride on the backs of the poor because we are forced to buy their products, forced to accept their services, and forced to have them as a part of our lives. And that's where the resentment, to my mind, comes in, that we have to go shop, go buy all that we have to buy. And we know so that they really, deep in their hearts, do not love us or Marcus Garvey.
My sister, I hear you use the word forced, and then maybe that is where the power is, because the idea that we are forced, I think, is where we're losing out as a people. And you also talk about the enlightenment that is needed, the improvement that is needed. We heard earlier from Devon and Linton Gordon talking about the need for enlightenment and of the electorate, and I think this is where the process of education comes in. Enlightenment as a wider word, and we're not talking about school learning, but understanding who we are, a sense of self, a sense of identity, that which is hidden from us in the textbook, and not in other words, not printed in the textbook, not taught in the schools. When you can have, for example, a Franklin Johnson, who is an advisor to the Minister of Education, who rubbishes the idea of reparations in the first place, but more importantly, whose thesis seem to be based on around the fact that Africans held Africans into slavery, and so that Africans need to shut them out. So when you have that coming from the highest levels, we get what we get at this level. The private sector knows that. The private sector said recently, remember we had a representative from the private sector who came out publicly to say the devaluation of the Jamaican dollar serves the private sector very well. They are seeing benefit from that. You or me not seeing any benefit.
Exactly. But Tabu, it goes right back to the fact that we're still on the plantation. Because remember, people like Mr. Johnson were the ones given the whip. They were the foremen who no owner ever whipped us. Who whipped us? Our own people who we can identify with and say yes. But we noticed that they got more of the hand-me-down clothes. They got more of the crumbs that fell from the table. So they have their own interests to protect. And they are placed there specifically to keep us where we are, miseducated, so that many of us are not even seeing what is hidden right under our noses. And this is why our educational system will remain as it is, because it is placed in the hands of these people. And then the owners and the policymakers at the top will say, well, your own Jamaican, your own black people, they set the curriculum, they set the policy, they set this. So is it any wonder then you can't blame us? We don't sit in committees that make policy to keep you undereducated as well as uneducated. It serves their purposes just fine.
What are we to do, my sister Valerie? You have been looking at this for a long time. You have been talking about this for a very long time. One of the things, the position that I hold now is that I think we should be done with a lot of talking now. Obviously, we have to strategize. But as Bob Marley says, enough has been said. Now let it be done.
That's right. But as Marcus Garvey says, there are two types of black people: the thoughtful and industrious, and the no-good Negro or black person. And he's saying that all of these chatters and these no-good people, if they die out, then what will come behind will be progressive black people who want to rule and govern themselves. My generation has to be blamed for a lot of the mess that we are in. As a young student coming up, I saw a lot. I saw people deliberately wear their hair in locks so that they could go into certain communities and turn people from one side into another. And then when that job was complete, what happened? Locks chop off, dashiki throw away, bush jacket bun up, and we became what we truly were trained and brainwashed and mesmerized to be. So we now occupy the Great House. And all those plans that were articulated in the 70s and the late 60s, where are they today?
So that the liberation process was hijacked. And
it was hijacked.
Yes. So we know that now, and it is our responsibility. And I've been talking about that, Valerie, because you see, it dawned on me that really and truly in this time we have to identify what collectively as a people our responsibilities are. I think that is very important. I know individually, but even if we look at take kind of a historical journey back and see what the process has been for liberation. We say slavery was an interruption, so we can't go as far back as we can. But let us look at the liberation process and what our ancestors did at different times, different periods, different eras for the liberation process, and look at where we are now, and then to look at, is the process complete? And if it is not complete, what is left to be done? What is left to be done is our responsibility in this time.
Kabu, to my mind, black people in Jamaica, the Caribbean, the diaspora have all been overtaken by fear. And I believe that a benchmark or a watershed for us was that Grenada invasion that took place in the Caribbean.
Yes.
People who were supposed to be radicals, people who should have been in the vanguard of the struggle for liberation, take to them foot and they flew. I mean, them fly away, them run, them do everything. And they simply just were assimilated, just taken in by the system. So much so that today when I see them, they are neither fish nor fowl.
Wow.
Do you see what I'm saying?
I see very clearly.
We at the UNIA, people will laugh and scoff at us, and even some of those who were supposed to be in the vanguard of the struggle are now saying that we're no longer relevant. But that's far, can't be further from the truth.
But Sister Val, isn't that a conversation to be had, not just about the UNIA, not just about the UNIA, but about the Pan-African, yes, about the Pan-African movement generally, that where is our relevance? That is a question that we must be asking ourselves and answering it. And maybe the UNIA has been through that process of reflection and have the answer. And I'd like to invite you back to talk about that. But I think that is
in
important.
Answer to your question, to use the words of Marcus Garvey, he said, "We want an atmosphere all our own. We would like to govern and rule ourselves and not be encumbered and restrained. We feel now just as the white race would feel if they were governed and ruled by the Chinese. If we live in our own districts, let us rule and govern those districts. If we have a majority in our communities, let us run those communities." This is where we have the problem, to my mind, Kabu. We don't run anything.
That's right.
We don't run anything. If the master to this day, 2016, tell us to jump, the black person is going to ask him, "How high, master?" Nothing has really changed because our change agents took flight and left us stranded to the point where we now have to look within ourselves. We have to be, as they say, the change that we want to see happen. Just like how I'm not begging for any sponsorship for the Marcus Garvey Fair, we are doing this using the self-help principles of Marcus Garvey, that he taught us. And I want this year to be an example to corporate Jamaica who tell me how much they love Jamaica and support ordinary Jamaicans, but they don't wish to be identified with this particular national hero.
As we just because we have just a few minutes left, really poignant points you're making there, Sister Valerie. I think we really need to develop on them, have that conversation in the studio if we can, and to be very, very frank with ourselves. Look at where we are, to be frank with ourselves, and as I was saying this morning, call it. You know, I think this is where we are.
Yeah, we have to call it.
You know,
I am calling it.
Yes. So Valerie, let's quickly go to the Marcus Garvey Fair, which is scheduled for the 28th, and it's not in danger, and it's not necessarily in danger of an election date. But we can go on.
And by the way, Kabu, as a teacher, let me teach you something.
Yes.
It is a leap year whenever the year can be divided by 4.
Thank you very much.
4 into 20 is 5, and 4 into 16 is 4. Hence, it is a leap year.
Thank you so much, my darling. If I had that this morning, I would never need to Google it. Thank you so much.
Oh, Lord. So it's going to be on Sunday at Cross Keys High School. Yes. We have a grown resource, so we're taking it to Cross Keys High School. Yes. And I know that you have your function, I have mine and others too, but as I always say, every higgler has his or her customer.
And we
so
do
don't
support,
be afraid because, and we're bringing the Iroquois Indians, led by the Maroons, as this year is a year of indigenous peoples.
Yes.
And our guest speaker will be Chief, His Excellency, Trevor Beckford of the Accompong Maroons. And the Iroquois Indians will be showing us demonstrating the game of lacrosse that they invented, the Native Americans in North Central and South America, but which is now in jeopardy because the elitist white people are taking it over and pretending, as always, that they invented it.
All right. It sounds as if it's going to be an exciting time. I wish I could be there to see that and to listen to that. But we're on the Pan-African business in both places, and this is happening on Sunday, February 28th at the Cross Keys High School. It's a Marcus Garvey Fair. Please go out and attend. We know quite a few things happening on that date, including possibly getting ready for election. But outside of that, the work continues, and these are some of the events that are happening on the 28th. Sunday, February 28th, the Marcus Garvey Fair. Sister Valerie, thank you so much.
You're very, very welcome, Kabu, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to really say it as I see it.
Okay, thank you so much. We could have almost make it the bottom line, but let us see if Asta Black have a bottom line. But I you know what? Let me just cap it off from now because I think it is the bottom line, and that's the bottom line. Thank you, sis.
Thanks again, Kabu,
right,
and we'll talk later.
All right, take care. Walk good. All right, Sister Valerie Dixon there.
Got to find a solution to this pollution. Oh. Got to find a solution to this pollution.
My brother Elton Dexter. My brother. Thank you for keeping in touch, Elton. We love it. I do apologize. I love it. All right. Mackie Conscious, I'm getting your text. So Mackie, you're a member of the family. You shouldn't be calling me. You shouldn't be texting me, asking me for that, Mackie. All right? So we could talk otherwise. And I prefer when you put a CD in my hand too, Mackie Conscious. But anyway, you can email it in the meantime to shamara@irfm.net, and that will ensure that I really get it what I should. Well, we're just about 14 minutes to go. We're going to be talking to Asta Black right now, another independent candidate. My brother Kwame Pianke, haven't heard from you in such a long time. Don't know if you're listening, but know you're in the U.S., but I see you commenting on the posts on Facebook. So thank you so much, Kwame. We really need to talk. Well, let me see if I can read what you've said here. It says, and you're responding to a retweet from Kavoy, who says the Prime Minister did say we're going to have a happy Easter, so I guess the election will be close to Easter holidays. All right. First of all, my brother Ezra Campbell says a real question: how can the rich get richer on the back of the poor and use democracy to protect their rich rights? Very good question. So Kwame says the planter merchant class that has run Jamaica for the past 3 centuries is afraid of true competition. Thus, this is the main reason for miseducation and the regressive IMF tax regime that the Jamaican private sector is so happy with. The private sector does not innovate, nor are they self-motivated. They make their massive profits by seeking cheaper labor in other places and by ensuring that they have a creative market in Jamaica. For instance, why does a major Jamaican food company source a majority of their tropical products from outside of Jamaica? We got some critical thinkers locked in to the Africa Forum. Sometimes the questions are more important than the answers. By the way, just a quick reminder that Dr. Clinton Hutton's public lecture, Bakra can't catch Duppy no, marching into war with the spirits at Morant Bay. This will take place in the Neville Hall Lecture Theatre, UA Mona, on Thursday, February 4, 2016, beginning at 7 p.m. All right, I do think we have some information, Shamara, regarding the 50th anniversary of His Majesty's visit to Jamaica for Michael Barnett. I want to look at that quickly. I don't think we can get Michael in now because we're totally out of time. But on the phone lines, we have Ras Asta Black. Asta, good morning.
Hi, Kabu. Yes. Greetings in the name of the Most High.
My brother, good to have you on. I know that there's an event coming up for, or has it gone? An event coming up for Westmoreland Is it Westmoreland that you?
Oh, that was, yes, yesterday. I friends at Baba Root. It was really well attended and very good, very informative, and progress continues.
Okay, that's brilliant. So that was
And
yesterday.
it's all about economic development within the African-minded people.
Okay. All right, Asta, with the few minutes that we have left, we're looking at this is all of this against the background of the rally that is being called for halfway tree this afternoon. Lots of persons heading into that already, and there's an expectation that the election date will be announced today. What are your own thinking on what's happening there?
That is good. I'm hoping and pray that she was really touched, because the most I know that Jamaica really need a change. And we today, the ones who do not vote for JLPNP, need to step up now and be the change. And our change should be specifically on roads and water within Jamaica, the entire Jamaica. We're looking forward to putting the first 4 years of independent governance.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like all independent-minded, African-minded people to follow the star, because most independent candidates are gravitating to the star, and the star is a symbol on the voter electoral office system. Like, that's what all independent-minded and African-minded people should be focusing on, the star.
Okay, so that's interesting, because we just heard from Haile Mikhail, and he tells us that the star would be his symbol, and you're saying that it is also yours?
For every independent-minded people, the star should be.
Okay.
And it is also my Jamaica Alliance movement has always used the star as a symbol, because a political party that was motivated by the PNP-YO, the Marcus Garvey PPP, was fighting for the star, but Jamaica Alliance movement was already assigned that symbol. So, I mean, all independent-minded people and African-minded people who want the change and will be the change will go for, and all ones who do not wish to vote for JLPNP should vote and follow the star.
All right. So remind us of where you are. Which constituency are you in?
I'm in South St. James. I'm from Point in St. James, the foothills of our hero, Daddy Sharp, and the entire South St. James. I want to transform it into a major tourist attraction, because the original Maroon Town, Trelawney Town, that's where Maroon Town and Kampong Town started. And it is of such interest that people all over the world would like to come and see it. And now, because the sugar thing has broken down and Long Pond is closed, they're now fixing the road to transport the sugar to across the hills of a Kampong Town to Appleton Estate. So the road is being fixed, so we're like 20-30 minutes from Trelawney, the Falmouth town, up to the original Trelawney town, and that will also boost tourism. So my manifesto is first 4 years, roads, water, and internet access to every community in Jamaica. And hospitality workers will be paid and should be and must be paid in US dollars. And total land reform. We're landholders and not landowners. So every Jamaican as you reach the age of voting, 18 years, you will hold a piece of land to do your economic development, such as technology, farming, whatever you need to use it for, but it will be used, and so the land transfers and land holdership will be divided. And I'm asking everyone again, I know your time is short, and to follow the star. And wherever you see a star on a ballot for this election coming up, put your X beside it. That X do not mean wrong, it means 10. And it means if you have to sign a check and you can't read and write, the X is the symbol. So follow the star. Anywhere you see the star, follow it, because we are all wise people.
Let me know.
Anywhere you see the star, follow it, because we are all wise people.
Let me know, Asta, how is the party funded? How is the Jamaica Alliance funded?
We have ones and ones of like minds globally who is ready and willing and offering their help towards this independent-minded movement, the STAR.
You
And
know,
my website is...
Yes, go ahead.
My website is nowjam.org, nowjam.org, and my email address is nowjam@gmail.com, and one can get in touch with me anytime.
I have a comment on Facebook that says, the last time we were instructed to follow the STAR, it resulted in our current dilemma.
Well, we have to be the change now. The dilemma was then. We are now the change, and every rightful thinking Jamaican, people of African-minded and independent-minded must follow the STAR and be the change. We don't have to think negative anymore. We need to go forward and work together as one.
Thank you so much, Astor Black. All the best.
Thank you very much to Kabu, and may the Most High guide all of us through this silly season. And I would like to see the season of gun killing for this February, which is Reggae Month, our indigenous Rastafari music. We don't want any killing, and the blocking of roads must stop also. That's
Thank
one
you,
thing.
Astor. We do have to go.
True, man. Hospitality workers paid in US dollar.
right, give
Rastafari love.
Give thanks.
What you do for yourself depends on what you think of yourself. And what you think of yourself depends on what you know of yourself. And what you know of yourself depends on what you have been told.
My brother Kenyatta Dada says it would be great if your program could be extended to TV. RFM would probably need its own station. We do sometimes live stream, and we do more than not live stream. So, well, not the Africa Forum, but a lot of our programs. Elise Kelly's Soul to Soul live stream more time. Big A's program on a Monday, especially live stream. And then every week there's a live stream of the Entertainment Buzz and also of WTS What's the Scoop. So that, if you're on irfm.net, the live stream usually free, so you don't have to pay for the live stream at all. If you log on to irfm.net from time to time, and every week you can pick up a live stream on IRFM at least 2 or 3, 4 days per week. To all our listeners on the 107s, 107.1, 107, all the way to 107.9. Thank you so much for listening in as usual. Thank you so much for being part of the family and for your commentary throughout the program. We appreciate the emails. We appreciate the texts. We appreciate the social media interaction, and really appreciate your contact with us throughout, your constant communication throughout the program by whatever means necessary. We really do love that. It helps us in guiding the program even while we're on, in terms of where we go, what we look at, what we miss. Sometimes we don't mention names because sometimes persons do write in and say, all right, so I have this information, here's the link, don't mention my name, etc. And that's brilliant. We love that too, when the research is ongoing while I'm on, because what it does, it creates a team of researchers and broadcast assistants who are not necessarily at IRFM, who are not necessarily on the compound, but who are really lending some serious intellectual support to the program. So I want to acknowledge you and to tell you thanks. And they're more than not. So thank you so much for that. My name is Kabuma at Keru. This is how we're going to leave you. But let me just quickly tell you that the 50th anniversary of the visit of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I to the Caribbean, that the 50th anniversary commemoration committee will be hosting. All right, so Michael says, so far as Jamaica is concerned, one of the groups that will be coordinating a series of activities for the 50th visit, a cross-section of Rastafari brethren and sistren from various Rastafari mansions and organizations, as well as unaffiliated Rastafari based in Jamaica. And the committee will be coordinating a series of events from April to November 2016. The focus of the commemoration will be during April 2016, and we'll have a program entitled Walking in the Footsteps of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie. And so let's see what's going to happen. A grand motorcade that will receive His Royal Highness Prince Ermias at the Norman Manley Airport, and stop at key points throughout Kingston on Thursday, April 21. And the inaugural Haile Selassie I lecture at UWI to be delivered by Prince Ermias Haile Selassie, grandson of Haile Selassie and president of the Ethiopia Crown Council. We must talk about the Crown Council because, all right, so we'll have some conversations on the Crown Council leading up to that. Educational and a cultural extravaganza at Haile Selassie High School under the patronage of Prince Ermias Haile Selassie on Friday, April 22. And then a Rastafari exhibit at Montego Bay featuring Rastafari artifacts from a range of international sources. And the committee emphasizes that this is not just to be a Rastafari event, but a Pan-African celebration of global proportions. All right. I know that there is a bingi before we go. All right. The Black History Naya bingi is at Asen Manso, Rio Brac, Trelawney tomorrow, February 1. Oh, tomorrow. Sister Jackie Roots, we should have spoken to her. All right, so tomorrow, February 1. I'm so sorry. Really should have called you this morning, Jackie. Didn't realize it was tomorrow. So the Black History Month Naya bingi is at Asen Manso, Rio Brac, Trelawney tomorrow, February 1. Remember that, Sister Jackie Roots. The Black History Month Naya bingi, Asen Manso, Rio Brac in Trelawney tomorrow, February 1. My name is Kabu Ma'at-Karu. Thank you so much for participating. Thanks to my very, 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 very important guests who came into the studio. Linton Gordon, attorney at law, Devon Evans, Haile Mikel on the phone lines, Bert Samuels, Mama Fire, and Ras Astor Black. I will leave you with him. Thank you so much. To all those who participated in the program, I appreciated that. Thank you so much to my sister Valerie Dixon on the phone lines also. See you next week. Walk good, take care. Tell them one howdy. On behalf of Shamara Preston and who's at the desk? And Jody, I am Kabu. See you next week.
essence of power is the ability to define someone's reality and have them live according to that definition as though it is a definition of their own choosing.